Chapter 3272. When the slot battle officially began, the first Supreme Elder and the others all retreated to the side. What happened next was needless to say. Apart from Shao Chun and Lin Yun, the rest of the Combat Ancestor Realm Kings all looked at the two of them at the same time. Under dozens of gazes, how could Shao Chun and Lin Yun not know that they were being targeted? I was wondering why the rules were suddenly changed. So that's why. The rules of the slot battle that had been in use for God knows how many years had suddenly been changed this time. It turned out that they were being targeted. Hearing Lin Yun's words, Shao Chun looked at the first Supreme Elder, who was not far away. Coincidentally, the first Supreme Elder's gaze was also looking in his direction. For a moment, the two of them looked at each other. The corners of the first Supreme Elder's mouth curled into a cold smile. It felt as if he was saying, "Let's see if you can survive this time." No matter how strong Shao Chun and Lin Yun were, the first Supreme Elder did not believe that the two of them could deal with so many Combat Ancestor Realm Kings at the same time. Since he could not deal with them personally, the first Supreme Elder could only do this and pay a heavy price for it. However, when he thought about how he could personally witness Shao Chun and Lin Yun being killed here, the first Supreme Elder felt a little better. He would use the two of them to accompany his grandson in death. The other Supreme Elders of Extreme Path Palace, beside the first Supreme Elder, naturally understood what was going on. To be honest, some of them did not agree with the first Supreme Elder's actions. After all, the cause of this matter was his grandson courting death. With his status, how dare he humiliate the Combat Ancestor Realm Kings? He deserved to be killed. Moreover, this matter was personally decided by the Palace Master. However, everyone who knew the first Supreme Elder well knew that he was a vengeful person. Even if they tried to persuade him, it would be useless. Moreover, since things had already come to this, there was no point in saying all this now. They could only hope that things would not develop out of control. The matter should have ended there, but the first Supreme Elder had made it difficult to deal with. Sigh. While the Supreme Elders of the Supreme Path Palace were having different thoughts, the group of Battle Ancestor Realm Kings had surrounded Shao Chun and Lin Yun. One of the middle-aged men looked at Shao Chun and Lin Yun and said faintly. He seemed to have some prestige among the crowd. "We don't have any enmity between us, but I was asked to do so by someone else, so I can only offend you. It doesn't matter. However, think carefully before you act. It's not worth it to lose your life for such a small reason." Hearing this, Shao Chun said calmly, "Right now, all of these people wanted to kill him, and Shao Chun had nothing to say about it. If these people wanted to die, then Shao Chun would satisfy them." Hearing Shao Chun's words, the middle-aged man was first stunned, then his face sank. "Shameless boasting. I know that the two of you are not weak, but can you deal with so many of us at the same time?" It was almost impossible for the two of them to fight against dozens of Battle Ancestor Realm Kings. Even if Shao Chun and Lin Yun were at the peak of the Battle Ancestor Realm, they could not do it. Unless they were sovereigns, no one in the Battle Ancestor Realm Kings could do it. Of course, but how do you know that there are only two of us? Shao Chun was not a brainless person. He knew that he was not a match for so many Battle Ancestor Realm Kings. However, this did not mean that Shao Chun could not deal with them. After all, Shao Chun and Lin Yun were not people without background. Shao Chun and Lin Yun relied on the Emperor Dong's palace. Originally, if the first Supreme Elder had been willing to stop, Shao Chun and Lin Yun would not have taken the initiative to cause trouble. However, this old thing did not believe in evil and insisted on avenging his grandson. If that was the case, then he could not blame others. Not far away, the first Supreme Elder's eyes flashed with a strange light when he heard Shao Chun's words. What was this guy trying to do? No matter how he looked at it, Shao Chun and Lin Yun were already dead. He could not think of any way to break out of this situation. Stubborn. Not thinking that Shao Chun and Lin Yun had any way to break out of this situation, the first Supreme Elder could only snort coldly, the killing intent in his eyes growing stronger. However, what the first Supreme Elder did not expect was that after he finished speaking, Shao Chun suddenly took out a formation plate from his interspatial ring. This formation plate was engraved with a teleportation formation, and it was personally engraved by the North Emperor. It was completely capable of teleporting the people of the Emperor Dong's palace here. This could be considered one of Shao Qin's trump cards. Some people did not know what Shao Qin was going to do. At the same time, Shao Qin looked at the first Supreme Elder again. This time, he did not hold back at all and shouted directly, "Old thing, I'll give you one last chance. Do you want to continue and make things go out of control?" I don't know what you're talking about. The slot battle has already begun. Stop talking nonsense." In response, the first Supreme Elder played dumb, indicating that he did not understand what Shao Qin was talking about. Hearing this, the coldness in Shao Qin's eyes became even more intense. Very well, this old thing would not shed tears until he saw the coffin. Without any hesitation, he activated the formation plate. In an instant, a teleportation formation with a diameter of about 50 to 60 meters appeared in front of Shao Qin. Seeing this teleportation formation, everyone present was stunned. The face of a heavenly elder from the Extreme Doctrine Palace instantly darkened. "It's actually a teleportation formation? Oh no, this fellow must have invited someone to help him in the battle." Looking at the grade of the teleportation formation, it can only be drawn by a ruler. Being able to become a Supreme Elder of the Extreme Doctrine Palace, he naturally had good eyesight. He could tell at a glance that the teleportation formation was extraordinary. Even the Extreme Doctrine Palace did not have many such teleportation formations. After all, there were only 3 formation masters who were rulers in the entire Fire Phoenix galaxy. 2 of them were in the central region, and the other was the North King of the North Imperial Palace. When they thought about how Shao Qin had invited someone to help him in the battle, the nature of this matter was completely different. This could be considered a big battle. By then, the entire Extreme Doctrine Palace would probably be implicated. The situation seemed to be developing in an uncontrollable direction. This was obviously not what the Extreme Path Palace wanted to see. Furthermore, the reason for this was that such a huge battle had been caused by an ordinary elder and an ordinary disciple. This made it even more meaningless. Of course, the first Supreme Elder was also involved. If he had not insisted on taking revenge for his grandson, things would not have developed to this point. Immediately, 2 irascible Supreme Elders looked at the first Supreme Elder and shouted coldly, "Are you satisfied now? It's clearly over, but you just have to stir up the flames of war again. Are you really planning to sacrifice the entire Extreme Doctrine Palace for that good-for-nothing grandson of yours? Please collect, monthly vote, recommend." End of chapter. Chapter 3273. Seeing that Shao Qin had activated the teleportation formation, the Supreme Elders of the Extreme Doctrine Palace turned pale. After all, the situation before their eyes was no longer within their control. What kind of situation was this? Originally, the matter had already ended, but now, the first Supreme Elder had forcefully ignited the flames of war. That ordinary disciple and his grandson had dug their own graves. Since the Palace Master had already sentenced them to death, why did the first Supreme Elder have to make such an unnecessary move? The first Supreme Elder's face darkened as he faced the crowd's accusations. However, he still refused to admit defeat. What's there to be afraid of? Why would the Extreme Doctrine Palace be afraid of Emperor Dong's palace? The first Supreme Elder still did not have the slightest bit of regret. In his opinion, would Emperor Dong's palace really dare to start a war with the Extreme Doctrine Palace? Faced with the first Supreme Elder's words, the other Supreme Elders beside him were all filled with rage. This was not a matter of whether they were afraid or not. The Extreme Doctrine Palace was not afraid of Emperor Dong's palace, but was it worth it? To put it bluntly, things had developed to this point entirely because of the Supreme Elder's stubbornness. This was not worth it. If it was because of some conflict of interest or some other important reason, the Extreme Doctrine Palace would not be afraid of a war with Emperor Dong's palace. However, the reason for this war was actually because of an ordinary disciple and an ordinary elder. This was ridiculous. In the entire Extreme Doctrine Palace, there were at least 800 ordinary elders like the first Supreme Elder's grandson, if not 1,000. This kind of elder was nothing to the Extreme Path Palace. They could casually bring out a bunch of them. Hence, Becoming enemies with Emperor Dong's palace over such a reason, or even starting a war with them, was not a wise choice. In the eyes of the crowd, the first Supreme Elder's actions were due to the hatred in his heart and his own selfish motives. He did not care about the interests of the Extreme Doctrine Palace at all. Just as the Supreme Elders were talking, far away in Emperor Dong's palace in the East region, a teleportation formation also appeared in front of the Emperor Dong's palace's main hall. Not long after, Zixian, Lai Wan, and Old Man Dongwang appeared. Lai Wan smiled as he looked at the teleportation formation in front of them. This is Xiao Qin's teleportation formation, right? Are they in trouble? It should be. Otherwise, Xiao Qin wouldn't have activated the formation. Is someone from the central region provoking the Emperor Dong's palace? Interesting. Let's go and see what's going on. Yes. As they spoke, everyone strode into the teleportation array. Although there were only 9 War Ancestor Realm Kings in the Eastern Imperial Palace, the atmosphere in the Eastern Imperial Palace was very good. At least everyone was very united. Therefore, when Xiao Qin activated the teleportation array and asked for help, no one chose to refuse or retreat. Very quickly, figures walked out of the teleportation array in the Extreme Doctrine Palace's small world. When they saw that no one had walked out, the faces of the Supreme Elders of the Extreme Doctrine Palace turned ugly. As for the group of War Ancestor Realm Kings who had reached an agreement with the Supreme Grand Elder and were prepared to attack Xiao Qin and Yi Qingtang, they didn't know what to do at this moment. If it was just Xiao, Qin, and Lin Yun, they definitely wouldn't be afraid. However, it was obviously no longer a problem between Xiao Qin and the Supreme Grand Elder. It had escalated to a battle between 2 major forces. In the face of such a situation, as long as one wasn't a fool, one would know that one shouldn't get involved. Otherwise, one would probably end up as cannon fodder. After all, many of the kings present didn't have such a powerful force behind them. There were no sovereigns either. Many people had already thought of retreating and quietly retreated into the distance. Obviously, these people didn't want to be involved in this matter anymore. Xiao Qin didn't stop them. There were so many people present. If he killed all of them, it wouldn't be a small matter. Of course, Xiao Qin wouldn't let the culprit go. Xiao Qin, you've only just arrived in the central region and you've already caused such a big trouble. Lai Wan and the others walked out of the teleportation array and looked at Xiao Qin as soon as they saw him. They had joined Emperor Dong's palace for quite some time and were familiar with each other, so they naturally spoke casually. Hearing Lai Wan's words, Xiao Qin smiled bitterly. This has nothing to do with me. Someone wants to take my life. In response, Xiao Qin replied with a smile and teased each other. At this moment, Zixian looked around and frowned slightly. This is Extreme Doctrine Palace. Zixian had been to the central region before, and it wasn't just once. From the clothes of the Supreme Grand Elder and the others, she quickly determined that this was Extreme Doctrine Palace. Zixian had some understanding of Extreme Doctrine Palace. It was a major force that wasn't weaker than Emperor Dong's palace. It was even stronger than Emperor Dong's palace. It was no wonder that Xiao Qin would activate the teleportation array. Facing Extreme Doctrine Palace, it wasn't something that Xiao Qin and Lin Yun could handle. Seeing the kings of Emperor Dong's palace walk out of the teleportation array one after another, the Supreme Grand Elders of Extreme Doctrine Palace looked increasingly displeased. Almost everyone glared at the Supreme Grand Elder fiercely, as though they were saying, "Look at what you've done." However, since it had already happened, it had to be resolved. Immediately, the Supreme Grand Elder who had met Xiao Qin once took the initiative to step forward. He came before Xiao Qin and the others with a smile. "Taoist Xiao Qin, Taoist Lin Yun, can we sit down and talk about this? This isn't Extreme Doctrine Palace's intention." Naturally, they didn't want to start a war with Emperor Dong's palace. However, this matter had to be resolved. In response, Xiao Qin said indifferently, "We can talk, but I only have one request. Hand over the Supreme Grand Elder." The others could be spared, but the Supreme Grand Elder, Xiao Qin, had to be killed because he was the instigator. Hearing Xiao Qin's words, the Supreme Grand Elder was speechless. Hand over the Supreme Grand Elder? Moreover, It was the Supreme Grand Elder of Extreme Doctrine Palace. How is that possible? It should be known that the Supreme Grand Elder wasn't an ordinary elder who could be handed over just like that. Even for the entire Extreme Doctrine Palace, the Supreme Grand Elder was an expert who couldn't be ignored. Moreover, he held a high position and held great authority. If they were to hand over their Supreme Grand Elder, where would the Extreme Doctrine Palace's dignity go? However, looking at Xiao Qian's attitude, the matter wouldn't be resolved peacefully if they didn't hand over the Supreme Grand Elder. His gaze shifted from Xiao Qian to Lai Wan and the other kings of Emperor Dong's palace. Lai Wan and the others naturally knew what the Supreme Grand Elder meant when he looked at them. All of them laughed heartily. Don't look at us. This matter is between Extreme Doctrine Palace and Brother Xiao Qian. Whatever Brother Xiao Qian says is the truth. We're just here to be hired thugs. Ha! Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 3274. Lai Wan and the others did not intend to settle the matter peacefully. After all, they were all furious after understanding what had happened. The Extreme Path Palace had gone too far. They had provoked Xiao Qian and the others time and time again. They had started with an ordinary elder and disciple, and now they were the first Supreme Elder. Did they really think that Emperor Dong's palace had no temper? That they could be easily manipulated by others? Moreover, the matter that was supposed to be over was once again stirred up by the first Supreme Elder. From the looks of it, the old man was planning to kill both Xiao Qian and Yi Futian right there and then. Therefore, it was impossible for the Extreme Path Palace to let the matter slide with just a few words. Seeing the attitude of Lai Wan and the others, the first Supreme Elder of the Extreme Path Palace looked a little unnatural. At the same time, the other first Supreme Elders had already informed the Palace Master of the Extreme Path Palace about the matter. The Palace Master of the Extreme Path Palace obviously did not know about this. As the Palace Master of the Extreme Path Palace, it was naturally impossible for him to take charge of the first Supreme Elder of the Extreme Path Palace. The Palace Master did not even know that the first Supreme Elder had taken the initiative to take charge of the first Supreme Elder of the Extreme Path Palace. At this moment, the Palace Master, who was in the middle of a discussion in the main hall of the Extreme Path Palace, suddenly received the news. He stood up abruptly, and his expression was extremely ugly. What an idiot! He had already warned him to stop, but the old man had ignored his words and still wanted to find trouble with Xiao Qian and the other person. He had even planned to kill the two of them openly. Great! Now that the people from Emperor Dong's palace were here, what should he do? Faced with the sudden change in the Palace Master, the experts of the Extreme Path Palace present were all stunned. Someone asked in confusion, "Palace Master, what's wrong? Put the other matters aside for now. I have something to deal with." There was definitely no time to discuss other matters now. If this matter was not handled well, it was likely to lead to a fierce battle between the two forces. Furthermore, fighting with Emperor Dong's palace was not something that Extreme Path Palace wanted to see. After all, Emperor Dong's palace was of the same lineage as the Hall of the Star-Lord. It was equivalent to being a direct descendant of the Hall of the Star-Lord. As for the Supreme Path Palace, although they were considered part of the Hall of the Star-Lord's camp, they were just a side branch in the end. Even a fool would know who was closer. The Extreme Path Palace was more powerful than the Emperor Dong's palace, but the Palace Master had no doubt that if the Extreme Path Palace really dared to attack the Emperor Dong's palace, the Star-Lord would definitely not sit idly by. Furthermore, the one who would suffer in the end would definitely be the Extreme Path Palace. It was like one was born and the other was picked up. The choice was obvious. He immediately planned to rush to the small world. However, a second piece of news soon arrived. When he saw the second piece of news, the Extreme Dao Palace Master's eyes almost popped out. How is this possible? The content of the message was simple. Dong Huang had personally arrived. What kind of joke is this? It's not a big matter, but even a ruler has been drawn out. For a moment, the Extreme Dao Palace Master was stunned. Since a ruler had made a move, this matter was probably not something he, the Palace Master, could handle. After being stunned for a few breaths, The Extreme Path Palace Master seemed to have made a difficult decision. In a flash, he rushed toward the depths of the Extreme Path Palace. Now that Dong Wang had appeared, only one person in the entire Extreme Path Palace could calm the situation. That person was the Extreme Path Palace's great ancestor. Naturally, only a ruler had the ability to face a ruler. At the same time, in the small world, after Lai Wan and the others appeared, just as everyone thought that the teleportation formation should have disappeared, two figures randomly walked out of it. They were an old man and an old woman. The old woman only had a cultivation base at the peak of the warlord ancestor realm, but the old man was a ruler. The two of them were none other than Dong Wang and his wife. When they saw Dong Wang appear, all the kings present instantly felt suffocated. This was especially so for the supreme elders of the Extreme Path Palace. They never thought that the matter would be blown out of proportion to the point that even a ruler would appear. Even the supreme first elder, who had always been stubborn, had a ghastly expression on his face. How could he have thought that even a ruler would appear for such a small matter? Was this a joke? Since there was a ruler so free, he had to personally appear for such a small matter. You brat, are you stirring up trouble again? Dong Wang had a faint smile on his face as he looked at Xiao Chun and Lin Yun and scolded them jokingly. Although he was scolding them jokingly, anyone could tell that he did not mean to blame them at all. He was there to support Xiao Chun and Lin Yun. Old man, we're not stirring up trouble. We just have no other choice. In response, Xiao Chun said with a smile. He was not uneasy at all. After hearing Xiao Chun's answer, Dong Wang smiled and shook his head. Then, he looked at the supreme elders of the Extreme Path Palace and said calmly, "It's been a long time since I've come here. The Extreme Dao Palace. It has been a long time since I last visited. However, after so many years, your Green Emperor seems to be regressing." The moment he opened his mouth, he directly looked down on the supreme elder of the Extreme Path Palace. Hearing this, everyone, including the supreme first elder, was furious but did not dare to say anything. There was nothing they could do about it. After all, he was a ruler. How could they refute him when he spoke? Even the supreme first elder chose to remain silent at this moment. He no longer looked as arrogant as before. In response, the other supreme elders looked at him with displeasure. "Look, this is all because of you. Now that things have gotten out of hand, why have you become mute again? You're already so old. Why don't you consider the consequences when you do things?" After this incident, the supreme first elder's prestige had indeed been greatly reduced. However, now was not the time to hold him accountable. What they needed to do now was to face the people from Emperor Dong's palace. Naturally, since Dong Wang had personally appeared, this matter would not be resolved with just a few words. However, with so many people present, no one could be mentioned in the same breath as Dong Wang. Only the patriarch could come out of seclusion. Just as the supreme elders were silently calling for their patriarch to appear, an old voice rang out as though he had heard everyone's thoughts. "Why have you come to my Extreme Path Palace, old man?" As the voice rang out, an old man in a long green robe appeared in front of Dong Wang. Seeing the old man appear, the supreme elders of the Extreme Path Palace heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, the patriarch had arrived in time. Otherwise, they would not have been able to hold on. Since the patriarch of the Extreme Path Palace had personally appeared, it meant that this matter was no longer something that the warring ancestors could decide. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 3275. Dong Wang wasn't nervous at all when the Supreme Dao Palace's great ancestor appeared. Furthermore, judging by the way the two of them were behaving, it seemed like they had known each other for a long time. Although the Fire Phoenix Galaxy was huge, there were only so many sovereigns. It wasn't strange for them to know each other. "Dong Wang, you came to the Supreme Dao Palace with such fanfare. Aren't you being a little too unreasonable?" The Supreme Dao Palace's great ancestor said coldly. Dong Wang sneered when he heard that. "Rules? Does the Supreme Dao Palace know the rules? If I hadn't come, wouldn't the king of Emperor Dong's palace have been killed by you? All right, there's no need for you to tell me all this. You know what happened, so there's no need for me to tell you. As for my request, it's very simple. Hand over your Extreme Path Palace's Supreme Grand Elder, and we'll drop this matter. The Supreme Tao Palace's great ancestor naturally knew what had happened. He had already cursed the Supreme Great Elder in his heart. As the third strongest martialist in the Extreme Path Palace, the Great Grand Elder wasn't a brainless person. However, why had he done something so irrational this time? It was clearly a small matter, but this idiot had actually caused such a huge commotion that it was difficult to clean up. However, even though he was furious, it was impossible for him to hand over the Supreme Great Elder. After all, the Supreme Great Elder's identity wasn't simple. He was definitely a core member of the Supreme Tao Palace's upper echelon. If the Supreme Tao Palace handed the Supreme Great Elder over just because of Donghuang's words, what would outsiders think? Would they think that the Supreme Tao Palace couldn't even protect their own people? Or perhaps the Supreme Tao Palace was afraid of Emperor Dong's palace and didn't dare go against it. Thus, no matter how wrong the first Supreme Elder was in this matter, no matter how unwise he was, it was impossible for him to hand him over. The Supreme Great Elder definitely didn't know what the Great Ancestor was thinking. When he heard Donghuang ask for the Supreme Great Elder to hand the Supreme Great Elder over, his heart tightened for some reason. He was a little apprehensive, but he soon relaxed after hearing the Great Ancestor's reply. Donghuang, don't use this as a pretext to make a fuss. It's impossible for us to hand him over. If you are willing, the Supreme Tao Palace can compensate the two of them. As he spoke, the Supreme Tao Palace's patriarch glanced at Xiao Chun and Lin Yan. However, neither Xiao Chun, Luo Yunyang, nor Donghuang cared about the compensation from the Supreme Path Palace. What kind of compensation could the Extreme Path Palace give? None of them were interested in those ordinary things. Furthermore, with the East Emperor's character, he would not let it go so easily. He was so angry that he laughed. Oh, you don't want to hand it over. Then we'll have to fight it out. Donghuang's words made the Supreme Tao Palace's patriarch's face turn extremely ugly. Donghuang, don't go too far. As he said that, a towering, ferocious aura soared from the Supreme Path Palace's patriarch. This pressure was terrifying to the extreme, causing the expressions of the surrounding kings to change drastically. Was the Battle of the Emperors about to break out? A battle between rulers was a rare sight. Now, it was up to Donghuang to deal with it. From the Supreme Tao Palace's great ancestor's point of view, it was impossible for him to hand over Luo Yunyang. Since Donghuang did not give him any face, he would not hesitate to fight. If Donghuang did not take a step back, the two rulers would probably break out into a huge battle. However, it was obviously impossible for Donghuang to take a step back at this time. Faced with the Supreme Tao Palace's great ancestor's pressure, Donghuang did not show any signs of weakness and revealed his aura. It's been a long time since we fought. It seems like you've forgotten some things. Fine, I'll help you recall them today. You're courting death. Upon hearing Donghuang's words, the Supreme Tao Palace's great ancestor's face turned even uglier. It was not difficult to tell that there were many past events between the two of them. As rulers, Donghuang and the Supreme Tao Palace's great ancestor naturally had many experiences. However, these experiences were not good memories for the Supreme Tao Palace's great ancestor. He did not know if they were born to be incompatible, but since the first time they met, the Supreme Tao Palace's great ancestor and Donghuang had been at odds. There were all kinds of open and covert fights, and there were simply too many things to count. However, the Supreme Tao Palace's great ancestor was also unlucky. He was fiercely suppressed by Donghuang every time. Although it was not to the extent that he could not fight back, he was always at a disadvantage. Especially in terms of combat power, Old Man Donghuang had firmly suppressed him from the beginning to the end. Although their cultivation levels had always been similar and there was almost no gap between them, the Supreme Tao Palace's great ancestor could not defeat Donghuang. Everything from before, in addition to Donghuang's insolence today, made the Supreme Tao Palace's great ancestor burn with rage. Seeing that the two rulers were about to fight, The many rulers around them cleverly distanced themselves from them. They did not dare to participate in a battle between rulers. If they were not careful, they might lose their lives. It's starting. A battle between rulers. This is a rare thing. I wonder what the outcome will be. No matter what the outcome is, it's not something we can participate in. I think everyone should think about themselves. Hearing someone say such words, everyone fell into silence. That's right. How could they be in the mood to care about such things? After all, every single one of them had reached an agreement with the first Supreme Elder. Now that old man Dongwang was here, the Supreme Tao Palace had a ruler who could contend against him. But what about them? They did not have any rulers behind them. What if Emperor Dong's palace wanted to settle the score with them? For a moment, many people panicked. If they had known this would happen, they would not have had any disputes with the Supreme Great Elder, no matter what they said. Everyone felt that they were in danger. As a result, many people bore a grudge against the Supreme Great Elder. It was this idiot who did not know anything. Now, he had dragged all of them down with him. No one cared about what the crowd was thinking. Everyone was looking at Dongwang and the Supreme Tao Palace's great ancestor. Both of them were ready to attack. Since they could not talk it out, they could only fight. As they spoke, both of them were ready to attack. However, at that moment, a figure suddenly blocked them. It was an old woman. Seeing the old woman appear, both Dongwang and the Supreme Tao Palace's great ancestor were stunned. Then, both of them politely cupped their hands. Greetings, Black Granny. They were none other than the two most trusted powerhouses by the Fire Phoenix Star Lord side. They were Elder Master Bai and Black Granny of all Black Grannies. They did not expect Black Granny to appear here. Faced with Dongwang and the Supreme Tao Palace's great ancestor salute, Black Granny looked indifferent. Are the two of you trying to destroy the Supreme Tao Palace? Black Granny, this guy's going too far. Now, what a joke. My people are about to be killed. Now, I'm the one who's going too far? Dongwang sneered at the Supreme Tao Palace's great ancestor. Please collect, vote, recommend. Chapter 3276. Black Granny's appearance here meant that the Palace of Star Lord was paying attention to this matter. Moreover, in front of Black Granny, even though Dongwang and the great ancestor were both rulers, they did not dare to be disrespectful. After all, she was a favorite of the Fire Phoenix Star Lord, and she was very experienced. It was not an exaggeration to say that Black Granny was probably one of the oldest rulers in the world. Moreover, according to some rumors, Elder Master Bai and Black Granny were both half a step away from surpassing rulers. Ordinary rulers were nothing in front of the two of them. For example, when Dongwang and the great ancestor faced Black Granny, they felt that she was unfathomable. Others might not have felt much because of the difference in strength, but Dongwang and the great ancestor could clearly feel how terrifying Black Granny was. It was an indescribable terror. Her aura was like an abyss, making people feel threatened. Therefore, after Black Granny appeared, whether it was Dongwang or the great ancestor, they tacitly restrained their auras. It was obvious that they had no intention of making a move. Although their hands had stopped moving, their mouths did not give in at all. Both of them were blaming each other, but after hearing their words, Black Granny directly looked at the first Supreme Elder. Before she came, Black Granny already knew the general situation of the matter. It could be said that all of this was caused by this fellow. Now that the matter had become so big, the first Supreme Elder would definitely have to stand up and take responsibility. It was impossible for him to escape just like that. Since you caused this matter, you should be the one to end it. How about this? You can come forward. As for the two of you, choose one of you to have a life and death battle. No matter the outcome, this matter will end here. A life and death battle. As soon as Black Granny opened her mouth, she asked the first Supreme Elder to have a fair battle with either Shao Chun or Lin Yan. This was also the best solution at the moment. After all, it was obviously impossible for the Extreme Path Palace to hand over the person. As a large force in the Central Territory, the Extreme Path Palace naturally needed to save face. Nevertheless, this was a fair battle. No matter who lived or died in the end, no one could blame others. Therefore, Black Granny's decision was not difficult for both sides to accept. Dong Wang was the first to speak. He looked at Xiao Chun and Lin Yun and asked, "What do you think?" "We have no objections." Xiao Chun and Lin Yun naturally wouldn't hesitate to kill this old man openly. Moreover, in terms of strength, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun were absolutely confident that they could defeat this first Supreme Elder. Upon hearing Xiao Chen's words, Dong Wang smiled and nodded. He then looked at the Supreme Path Palace's great ancestor. "I think Black Granny's method is not bad. It's very fair. My Emperor Dong's palace will accept it." Emperor Dong's palace was very straightforward. Of course, this was because they had absolute confidence in their own strength. On the other hand, the Extreme Path Palace's side fell silent. Especially First Supreme Elder, when he heard Black Matron say that she wanted a fair fight, his face instantly turned ugly. If it was from the bottom of his heart, the First Supreme Elder would definitely not agree. After all, the First Supreme Elder had a rough idea of who was stronger between himself and Xiao Chen. There was a high probability that he would be defeated. Therefore, the First Supreme Elder didn't have much courage to fight. Looking at the First Supreme Elder's expression, how could the crowd not understand? At that moment, many people were already looking at him with disdain. "You've caused so much trouble. Now, even Black Matron from the Star-Lord Palace has personally come forward. Moreover, the method she gave was also the fairest. In any case, both sides would have a fair one-on-one fight. No one would have an advantage. However, you're actually scared at this time? If you're scared, why did you have to cause so much trouble before? Moreover, don't forget that you're the first Supreme Elder of the Extreme Path Palace. There's so many people present. You represent the Extreme Path Palace. In the face of a fair fight, you're actually scared before the fight. Aren't you embarrassing the Extreme Path Palace?" The Palace Master of the Extreme Path Palace glanced coldly at the First Supreme Elder. His heart was filled with anger. This fellow was simply a fool and a coward. Now that you know how to be scared, why didn't you do it earlier? Humph. The Extreme Path Palace also agrees with Black Matron's decision. The great ancestor of the Extreme Path Palace snorted coldly. He didn't even ask for the First Supreme Elder's opinion before nodding in agreement. Hearing that, the First Supreme Elder was a little anxious. He hurriedly looked at his great ancestor. "Great ancestor, shut up." However, the great ancestor of the Extreme Path Palace didn't give him a chance to speak at all. Even if he were to die in battle today, he couldn't be scared. Seeing that Dong Wang and the great ancestor of the Extreme Path Palace had both agreed, Black Matron immediately announced, "Then let's begin. However, I'll say this first. After this battle, no matter what the outcome is, if anyone uses this as a pretext to cause trouble, don't blame me for being merciless. Don't worry, Black Matron. The East Imperial Palace still has this bit of courage. Naturally, we'll abide by the agreement." In response, Dong Huan replied with a satisfied expression. There was even a smug smile on his face. In any case, in Dong Huang's opinion, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun were definitely going to win this battle. As for the First Supreme Elder, he was basically going to lose. The great ancestor of the Extreme Path Palace only snorted coldly and didn't say anything. The battle to the death was about to begin. However, at that moment, Xiao Chun, who had been silent all this while, suddenly looked at Black Matron and said, "Senior, I have something to say. Just say it. Senior, you already know about this matter. However, I feel wronged in my heart. Why don't we use the outcome of this battle as a wager? If I lose, not only will I lose my life, but all the cultivation mystic realms in the East Imperial Palace will be open to the Extreme Path Palace unconditionally for 10 years. However, if I win, then all the quotas for the Emperor Extremity Mountain of the Extreme Path Palace will be given to the East Imperial Palace." What was the point of a battle to the death? Xiao Chen naturally wouldn't let go of this opportunity to gain benefits. There were a total of 20 quotas for the Emperor Extremity Mountain. Xiao Chun wanted all of them. After all, with Black Matron here, the Extreme Path Palace wouldn't dare to act rashly. However, after hearing Xiao Chen's words, the great ancestor of the Extreme Path Palace immediately shouted, "Young man, don't push your luck. Old man, how can this be called pushing your luck? If you do something wrong, you naturally have to pay the price. Moreover, if you agree to bet, you must accept your loss. I think Xiao Qin's suggestion is pretty good. The East Imperial Palace agrees to this. If we lose, all the cultivation mystic realms in the East Imperial Palace will be open to the Extreme Path Palace unconditionally for 10 years. In an instant, Dong Wang understood what Xiao Qin meant. Naturally, he chose to support Xiao Qin without hesitation. After all, this was a guaranteed victory. If there was a chance to extort, why not? Please add it to your collection. Monthly vote recommended. Chapter 3277. Dong Wang immediately agreed to Xiao Qin's bet, but the Supreme Tao Palace's great ancestor didn't agree. He wasn't stupid. Since he knew that the chances of winning were very small, why would he agree? Moreover, Xiao Qin wanted all the spots on the Emperor Extremity Mountain. Wasn't this equivalent to making the Emperor Extremity Mountain lose everything? Both sides naturally started arguing again. In the end, Black Granny spoke up and made the final decision. All the spots are indeed a little too much. How about this? Let's bet 10 spots. The Supreme Tao Palace's great ancestor didn't care about reducing the number of spots to 10. After all, every time the Emperor Extremity Mountain opened, the Supreme Tao Palace only had 10 spots. As for the remaining half, it was for others to compete for. Therefore, strictly speaking, the ownership of these 10 spots didn't affect the Supreme Tao Palace much. However, this made the expressions of the other Battle Ancestor Realm Kings turn ugly. However, Black Granny had said herself, even if they were dissatisfied, they didn't dare refute her. Perhaps she was punishing them for their previous choice. After all, they had all decided to kill Xiao Qin and Luo Yin. Now, Black Matron had taken back their Emperor Extremity Mountain quota with just one sentence. This was understandable. They could only grit their teeth and swallow it. Everyone was holding their anger, but no one dared to jump out and say anything. Xiao Qin thought about it for a while and agreed to the request. Seeing that both sides had reached a consensus, Black Granny wasn't in a hurry to leave. Instead, she prepared to watch the battle between Xiao Qin and the First Supreme Elder. Everyone moved aside, leaving space for the First Supreme Elder and Xiao Qin. After some discussion, Xiao Qin was still the one to fight. Lin Yin naturally didn't have any objections. After all, it was the same no matter who fought. The First Supreme Elder didn't have any chance of winning. Old thing, since you want to kill me so much, then do it. A Realm King only knows how to hide behind others and use despicable methods. Don't you feel ashamed? You're courting death. Hearing Xiao Qin's words, the First Supreme Elder's face instantly darkened. This brat really doesn't know what's good for him. He immediately took the initiative to attack Xiao Qin. Facing First Supreme Elder's attack, Xiao Qin did not panic at all. With a thought, the dustless sword appeared in his hand. With a casual slash, he blocked First Supreme Elder's attack. It was only a single exchange, but the difference in strength between the two was obvious. Xiao Qin appeared to be at ease when facing the First Supreme Elder. Although the First Supreme Elder had already attacked with his full strength and anger, he was unable to gain the slightest advantage against Xiao Qin. Black Matron, who had been watching the battle, said with a rare smile, "Dong Wang, are these the two brats you mentioned before?" Black Matron had long heard of Xiao Qin and Lin Yin. Don't forget that Dong Wang had specially contacted the Hall of Star-Lord when Xiao Qin and Lin Yin had been trapped by the void-slaying beast. At that time, Dong Wang had praised Xiao Qin and Lin Yin to the skies. He had even said that as long as the two of them did not die, they would definitely become kings in the future. This was a very high evaluation, so Black Matron's memory of the two of them was still fresh. In response, Dong Wang said with a smile, "It's nothing. However, it's enough to deal with some trash." As he said that, he deliberately glanced at the Supreme Tao Palace's great ancestor. This made the great ancestor of the Supreme Tao Palace anxious. However, because Black Matron was here, the great ancestor of the Supreme Tao Palace could not say much. Moreover, from what had happened before, Black Matron was obviously biased towards Emperor Dong's palace. It could not be helped. One was a faction under the direct command of the Hall of Star-Lord, while the other was a side faction. Black Matron was definitely biased towards Emperor Dong's palace. After being humiliated by Dong Wang and having no way of getting back at him, the great ancestor of the Supreme Tao Palace could only vent his anger on the first Supreme Elder. It was all because of this idiot who had caused so much trouble. He was simply incapable of accomplishing anything. Just as the three of them were talking, the battle between Shao Chun and the first Supreme Elder had entered a white-hot stage. Facing Shao Chun's attacks, the first Supreme Elder was clearly exhausted. Due to the difference in strength, the first Supreme Elder had no choice but to use all his strength when facing Shao Chun's attacks. Over time, he naturally exhausted a lot of his strength. On the other hand, Shao Chun was unhurriedly slashing out sword after sword. After fighting for so long, Shao Chun had a rough understanding of the first Supreme Elder's strength. Among the kings of the Warlord Ancestor realm, the old man's strength was indeed not bad. He could be considered one of the top people. Otherwise, he would not have been able to become the first Supreme Elder of the Supreme Tao Palace and become the third strongest person in the Supreme Tao Palace. However, although he was strong, he was still inferior to Shao Chun. There was still a gap. This gap was enough for Shao Chun to win. Of course, it would take some time and methods to kill him. At the very least, he would have to slowly exhaust him. It was impossible to kill him instantly. The battle between the two of them was very intense. After all, they were both aiming to kill each other. Black Matron had already said that this was a battle to the death. Hence, they could only use life and death to determine the victor. For 3 whole days, Shao Chun and the first Supreme Elder were both excited. They did not stop at all. Shao Chun did not give the first Supreme Elder any chance to take a breather. After 3 days, the first Supreme Elder's condition had obviously reached a limit. It was extremely bad. Shao Chun naturally saw everything. After fighting for so long, it was time to make a move. The first Supreme Elder seemed to have sensed the change in Shao Chun's killing intent and was stunned. To be honest, he was already regretting it. He had only intended to avenge his grandson. However, who would have thought that things would develop like this and that he would be implicated? As the first Supreme Elder of the Supreme Tao Palace, he had a high position and authority. If he had known that this would happen, he would not have come to find trouble with Shao Chun. This was simply not worth it. Unfortunately, it had already happened. There was no point in saying anything now. Moreover, Shao Chun obviously had no intention of letting him go. The first Supreme Elder could only give it his all. However, there were some things that could not be changed just by giving it his all. The time had come. Shao Chun immediately killed him. The Emperor's sword was instantly displayed. 18 Emperor's swords were slashed out from Shao Chun's hands in a row. The first Supreme Elder was stunned when he saw the 18 swords that looked like they were going to tear the world apart. How was this possible? The two of them had fought fiercely for 3 days. The first Supreme Elder did not believe that Shao Chun still had such a terrifying amount of spiritual power left. This was not like a person who had fought fiercely for 3 days. How could he still have so much spiritual power? It did not make sense at all. However, there was no time for the first Supreme Elder to think about it. What he needed to do now was to block Shao Chun's attack. Please add it to your collection. Please recommend it. Chapter 3278. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that the attack of the 18 Emperor's swords could destroy heaven and earth. Even the first Supreme Elder at his peak would find it difficult to withstand this move, let alone the current him. Shao Chun had been saving his trump card for this moment to ensure that he could kill Yi Futian in one hit. The first Supreme Elder didn't have time to think. He immediately made his move and used all the power in his body. Unfortunately, his defense was like paper in the face of the attack of the 18 Emperor's swords. It was easily destroyed. His entire body was instantly swallowed by the swords. Seeing this scene, many of the people present could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. This attack was too terrifying. It could be said that none of the combat ancestor realm monarchs present would dare say that they could withstand Shao Chun's attack. Even the palace master of the Extreme Path Palace frowned. Based on the current situation, the outcome of the battle had already been decided. Even if the first Supreme Elder managed to withstand this attack, he would definitely be seriously injured and his death would be unavoidable. If he were in Shao Chen's shoes, would he have the confidence to withstand this attack? The answer that the Palace Master of the Extreme Path Palace came to was no. He might be able to withstand it, but he would definitely have to pay a huge price. Were the strength of Shao Chun and Luo Yunyang really that strong? Even Black Granny couldn't help but nod her head slightly when she saw this. That's right. This kind of strength can be considered unrivaled among the combat ancestor realm monarchs. At the very least, the number of monarchs in the central region who have this kind of combat strength can be counted on one hand. Black Granny's evaluation was already very high. Unrivaled among the combat ancestor realm monarchs? What kind of concept was that? Dong Wang was naturally beaming with joy. However, the Extreme Path Palace Patriarch's expression was ugly as he remained silent. It was not that he was feeling sorry for the First Supreme Elder. In his eyes, the First Supreme Elder had done such a foolish thing. Even if the First Supreme Elder were to die, it would serve him right. He had brought shame upon himself. What really pissed the Extreme Path Palace Patriarch off was that Black Granny had such a high evaluation of Shao Chun. Secondly, it was Shao Chen's strength. Even though Shao Chun wasn't a threat to the Supreme Dao Palace's Patriarch, Luo Yunyang was still worried. However, didn't Black Granny say that if nothing went wrong, Shao Chun and Lin Yun would definitely be able to break through to the ruler stage? Once the two of them broke through and became rulers, given their combat powers, they would not be weak. By then, even the Supreme Path Palace's great ancestor would have to treat them seriously. In addition, the relationship between the Extreme Path Palace and Shao Chun wasn't very good. It's all that idiot's fault. He cursed in his heart. Naturally, everything was blamed on the Supreme First Elder. Of course, he didn't blame him at all. While everyone was having their own thoughts, the First Supreme Elder, who was enveloped by the 18 Emperor's swords, still found it difficult to resist even though he had already used everything he had. The endless and terrifying sword edge tore his body apart. Furthermore, the First Supreme Elder could sense that the attack was actually accompanied by a spiritual slash. Even his divine soul would be greatly damaged. If one wanted to kill a warlord ancestor, it was obviously not enough to destroy his body. Therefore, Shao Chen's Emperor's swords definitely contained a spiritual slash. Under such a terrifying double attack, the First Supreme Elder soon couldn't hold on any longer. A dense aura of death enveloped his body, and for a moment, he felt extremely cold. It had been a long time since he had experienced a life-or-death crisis. Perhaps it was after he became the First Supreme Elder of the Extreme Path Palace. After all, as the First Supreme Elder of the Extreme Path Palace, he basically wouldn't be in any danger, and no one would be blind enough to attack him. It was really like this. After being in a high position for so many years, the First Supreme Elder's state of mind had changed. He began to be arrogant and seek revenge for the smallest grievance. However, this time, he had really kicked an iron plate. Shao Chun was different from the previous ones. He really dared to kill him. Moreover, he didn't hesitate at all and didn't give the First Supreme Elder any chance. He wanted to kill him here. Damn it! At the last moment of his life, the First Supreme Elder shouted angrily. His voice was filled with unwillingness. Unfortunately, even unwillingness couldn't change anything. He couldn't block Shao Chen's attack, so he could only die. In the end, under everyone's gaze, the sword slowly dissipated, and the First Supreme Elder's body completely disappeared from the spot. They couldn't sense any aura of the First Supreme Elder anymore. The First Supreme Elder, who could be considered a formidable figure, was killed by Shao Chun just like that. The people from the Extreme Path Palace naturally had mixed feelings. Although they were resentful of the First Supreme Elder after what had happened, they were still worried. However, no matter what, he was still a member of the Extreme Path Palace. Now that he had been killed in front of everyone, how would they, who were also the Supreme Elders of the Extreme Path Palace, feel? In any case, they definitely weren't happy. Even the Supreme Elder of the Extreme Path Palace couldn't help but take a deep breath. On the other hand, Black Matriarch remained calm. Since the outcome has been decided, Everything will go according to what we've said before. Give Emperor Dong Palace 10 quotas for the Emperor Extremity Mountain. Also, this matter will end here. If anyone dares to stir up trouble again, don't blame me for not being courteous. She reminded Dong Wang and the Supreme Elder of the Extreme Path Palace. Dong Wang nodded when he heard that. The Supreme Elder of the Extreme Path Palace also agreed reluctantly. At this point, even if he was dissatisfied, he couldn't say anything. As for the 10 quotas for the Emperor Extremity Mountain, it didn't matter if they were given it. It wouldn't affect them much. However, the Extreme Path Palace's reputation would be lost if what happened today spread out. However, what could they say about it? Both sides had a fair fight. In the end, the first Supreme Elder was killed. They could only blame themselves for being inferior. How could they blame others? After the matter was settled, Black Matriarch didn't stay for long. However, before she left, she spoke to Dong Wang and the Supreme Elder of the Extreme Path Palace with a grave expression. It's an eventful time now. Regarding the Azure Dragon Galaxy, the Star-Lord has already made a decision. After all, some things are unavoidable. As emperors, I hope that you can consider the big picture and not just focus on this small matter. You must know who the real enemy is. After saying that, Black Matriarch left directly. Dong Wang and the Supreme Elder of the Extreme Path Palace stood where they were in silence. They obviously understood what Black Matriarch meant. Indeed, compared to the Azure Dragon Galaxy, what was happening now was nothing. The two of them looked at each other. It was rare that they didn't quarrel. Only Lai Wan and the others came to Shao Chun and smiled. I knew you would win. This is great. 10 quotas for the Emperor Extremity Mountain are in our hands. Not bad, not bad. Begging for your collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 3279. The first Supreme Elder had been killed by Shao Chun, and the matter had come to an end. Moreover, Black Granny had personally stepped in this time, so there would not be any more foolish incidents in the future. Although the people from the Extreme Doctrine Palace did not have a good attitude towards the people from Emperor Dong's palace, they did not pay much attention to it. Now that there were 10 places to enter the Emperor Extremity Mountain, they naturally would not let outsiders take advantage of them. Lai Wan and the rest did not hesitate to rush over from Emperor Dong's palace. Shao Chen naturally would not treat them unfairly. Moreover, the places to enter the Emperor Extremity Mountain could only be used by warring ancestor realm sovereigns. Long Qing and Lin Yuan had no choice but to give it to Lai Wan and the rest. Shao Chan shared his idea with the rest, and they were naturally excited to hear it. Lai Wan and the rest had entered the Emperor Extremity Mountain before, but who would complain about entering such a precious place for cultivation more than once? The decision was quickly made. As for the martial artists who had come to participate in the quota battle, they could only return empty-handed as they had made the wrong choice previously. They did not make things difficult for Shao Chun and the rest. They returned to their previous residence, but this time Lai Wan and the rest also stayed there. However, to everyone's surprise, Old Man Dong Wang did not leave, but chose to stay in the central region. Once you are done with the Emperor Extremity Mountain, return to the East region on your own. Use the teleportation formation. As for Shao Chun and Lin Yun, continue to train in the central region. You have just arrived anyway. Old Man Dong Wang instructed everyone. Hearing this, everyone nodded in agreement. They had all come to the central region to train before, so they naturally would not follow Shao Chun and the rest all the time. After staying in the Extreme Doctrine Palace for a night, Old Man Dong Wang left with the great ancestor of the Extreme Doctrine Palace. What do you think is wrong with the old man? He doesn't look good. After sending Old Man Dong Wang off, Lai Wan asked curiously. However, everyone looked at him as if he was an idiot. Almost everyone knew that a great war was about to break out between the Azure Dragon Galaxy and the Fire Phoenix Galaxy. Old Man Dong Wang's reaction was naturally because of this matter. After all, rulers were the top combat powers in the two galaxies. In such a large-scale battle, even a ruler could not let down his guard. Furthermore, Old Man Dong Wang and the great elder of the Supreme Tao Palace had probably gone to the Hall of the Star-Lord to discuss what to do next. It was not difficult to imagine how tragic the war between the two galaxies would be just by thinking about it. At that time, even the kings wouldn't dare to say that they had the power to protect themselves. After all, the emperors would personally participate in the battle, and even the Star-Lord would be there. However, these matters were too far away from Shao Chun and the others. Moreover, with their cultivation and status, they were not in a position to decide these matters. Looking at a galaxy, the Emperor and the Star-Lord were the true core upper echelons. As for the War Ancestor Realm King, although in the eyes of ordinary people, it was already an unreachable existence. But in reality, a king still couldn't control the future of a galaxy. Shao Chun didn't think too much about it. Since he couldn't change anything, he could only work hard to improve his strength. Regardless of whether the war between the Azure Dragon Galaxy and the Fire Phoenix Galaxy would erupt, it was always good to improve his strength. If he could break through to the ruler realm before the war began, it would undoubtedly be the best outcome. At least he wouldn't be killed so easily. In the next few days, no one caused any trouble. The people from Emperor Dong's palace didn't cause trouble for the Supreme Tao Palace, and the people from the Supreme Tao Palace didn't cause trouble for the people from the Emperor Dong's palace. As for the matter of the Supreme Grand Elder, the Supreme Tao Palace naturally tried their best to conceal it. Up until now, it hadn't spread. Thinking about it, as the Supreme Grand Elder of the Supreme Tao Palace was directly killed, this wasn't something to be proud of. It would be strange if the Supreme Tao Palace took the initiative to expose it. However, this matter was witnessed by many people. Even if the Supreme Tao Palace wanted to hide it, it couldn't. At present, some rumors had begun to spread in the Ten Directions continent, and they were basically talking about the same thing. Although the Supreme Tao Palace was furious, there was nothing they could do. No matter how strong they couldn't shut the mouths of the people in the world. What's more, it's on her. What can you do if she wants to say something? A few days passed peacefully. On this day, the Emperor Extremity Mountain finally opened. It wasn't located in some small world. It was said that the Emperor Extremity Mountain was the first mountain peak between heaven and earth. It was formed by heaven and earth, and it had its own mighty force. Therefore, the small world constructed by cultivators couldn't contain the Emperor Extremity Mountain. The Emperor Extremity Mountain was located in the depths of the Supreme Tao Palace, and it was heavily protected. Usually, without the permission of the Supreme Tao Palace, no one was allowed to approach. Arriving at the foot of the Emperor Extremity Mountain, the mountain peak wasn't too high. It even looked a little ordinary, but it gave people a very special feeling. Especially since there weren't any trees on the Emperor Extremity Mountain. There were only bolts of lightning falling from the sky. These bolts of lightning enveloped the entire Emperor Extremity Mountain, as if a forest of lightning was built on the mountain. It was said that these bolts of lightning had existed since the birth of the Emperor Extremity Mountain. For tens of millions of years, they had never stopped. This place was like the end of the world, making it hard for people to look away. In addition to the lightning, there were many nomological origins on the Emperor Extremity Mountain. No one knew where these nomological origins came from. However, this was exactly what the Supreme Tao Palace needed. Shao Chun, the closer you are to the peak of the Emperor Extremity Mountain, the better. Therefore, when you enter the mountain later, you must try your best to reach the peak. Lai Wan and the others who had entered the Emperor Extremity Mountain told Shao Chun and Lin Yun. Because of what had happened previously, the 20 people who entered the Emperor Extremity Mountain this time were from two different camps. The Supreme Tao Palace and Emperor Dawn's Palace each had 10 people. In addition, they didn't see eye to eye with each other, so it was inevitable that there would be competition. The peak of the Emperor Extremity Mountain was only so big, so it naturally couldn't accommodate everyone. Therefore, the competition for the peak would be very intense. Whoever could successfully reach the top of the mountain would be able to obtain more benefits. This was also why Lai Wan and the others had been reminding Shao Chun and Lin Yun not to linger on other places. Once they entered the mountain, the first step was to reach the peak and strive to reach the peak. Since Emperor Dawn's palace was doing this, the Supreme Elder of the Supreme Tao Palace was naturally doing the same. He glanced coldly at the people from Emperor Dawn's palace and said coldly, "Humph! This time, the peak will belong to us. We can't give it to them. That's right. We have given all the spots to them. The peak will definitely belong to our extreme Dao Palace. The palace master will definitely reach the peak. Please add, vote, recommend." Chapter 3280. The peak of the mountain was the best place in the entire Emperor Extremity Mountain. Naturally, the people of Extreme Path Palace would not give it up. When the people of Emperor Dawn's palace saw the look in the eyes of the people of Extreme Path Palace, they instantly knew what they were thinking. They did not take it seriously. Of course, they were competing for the best spot of the mountain peak. This was completely different from what had happened before. Hence, there was no hatred. However, their fighting spirit was gushing out even before they entered the mountain. "Everyone, it's about time. Let's enter the mountain." Not long after, the palace master of Extreme Path Palace looked at the people of Emperor Dawn's palace and said calmly. Hearing this, Xiao Chun and the others nodded. Then, the two groups of people entered the Emperor Extremity Mountain at the same time. When they entered the Emperor Extremity Mountain, the heavenly lightning that fell from the sky seemed to have sensed the intruders and crazily struck towards them. Facing so many heavenly lightning attacks, the first reaction of an ordinary person would be to defend or dodge. However, Zixin took the initiative and said to Xiao Chun and Lin Yun, "Don't defend or dodge. Let the heavenly lightning attack. This is a good thing. Ignore the heavenly lightning." Hearing this, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun allowed the heavenly lightning to strike their bodies. For a moment, the two of them could clearly feel that the heavenly lightning had the effect of tempering the body and divine soul. That's right. The heavenly lightning was also a great treasure of the Emperor Extremity Mountain. If it was an ordinary cultivator, they might not be able to withstand the attack of the heavenly lightning. However, Xiao Chun and the others were kings of the combat ancestor realm. They could completely withstand it. Moreover, the heavenly lightning had such benefits. They naturally could not waste it. No wonder people said that it was a waste to enter the Emperor Extremity Mountain if one was not a combat ancestor realm king. Thinking about it, the heavenly lightning alone was not something a combat ancestor realm king could endure. They could only defend and dodge. It was impossible for them to use the heavenly lightning to temper their bodies like a king. Everyone advanced while enduring the heavenly lightning. Xiao Chun and Lin Yun, who were entering the Emperor Extremity Mountain for the first time, could be said to have gained the most benefits under the attack of the heavenly lightning. In a short period of time, Xiao Chun could clearly feel that his body and divine soul had been strengthened. As expected of a famous place in the central region, it really lives up to its name. Xiao Chun couldn't help but sigh. However, he quickly calmed himself down and continued to climb up the mountain. Everyone only had one thought at the moment, and that was to reach the peak of the Emperor Extremity Mountain. Even if they couldn't reach the peak, they would at least try their best to get close to it. That was because the closer one was to the peak of the mountain, the more benefits one would obtain. Places like the foot of the mountain were basically meaningless, and no one would stay there for too long. However, the closer they got to the top of the mountain, the more Xiao Chun felt that the heavenly lightning above them was becoming more and more frightening. Even he was starting to feel that he was unable to withstand it. In addition, Xiao Chun also tried to defend and dodge, but he found that these mountain peaks could not be defended or dodged. I can only endure it. If I can't withstand it, I won't be able to reach the peak. At the same time, the surrounding law origins also brought about more and more pressure. This pressure felt as if it wanted to squash you. 2 hours later, everyone arrived at the peak of the mountain. After arriving here, due to the difference in strength, there was a gap between the 20 people. Those who were weaker had already become extremely strained. Looking at them, it was obviously impossible to reach the peak of the mountain. They knew this as well, so everyone was challenging their own limits, wanting to reach a higher place. Along the way, in the end, there were only a few people left who were still challenging the peak of the mountain. At this time, Zixin could no longer bear it. They were not far from the peak of the mountain, but Zixin had indeed reached her limit. If she continued to go up, She was likely to be severely injured by the heavenly lightning and the law origins. The gains did not make up for the losses. Xiao Chun, Lin Yun, I can't take it anymore. You guys continue. Remember, if you really can't take it anymore, you must choose to give up. Don't try to be brave, otherwise you will only waste this opportunity. The opportunity to enter the Emperor Extremity Mountain was extremely rare. Zixian naturally did not want to see Xiao Chun and Lin Yun miss it. Hearing that, the two of them nodded and continued to walk towards the peak of the mountain. After walking for a few hundred meters, Lai Wan and a Supreme Elder of the Extreme Doctrine Palace also reached their limits. At this point, only Xiao Chun, Lin Yun, and the Palace Master of the Extreme Doctrine Palace were left. The three of them continued to climb. At this point, even Xiao Chun felt a little strained. However, they were still a little far from the limit, so Xiao Chun naturally would not give up. It was the same for Lin Yun. The two of them looked calm and continued to climb with determination. Their speed was not fast. Moreover, every time the heavenly lightning struck, the two of them frowned slightly. It was obviously a change due to the pain. Indeed, the heavenly lightning had caused Xiao Chun and Lin Yun quite a bit of pain. Even so, the Palace Master of the Extreme Doctrine Palace was extremely shocked to see the two of them in such a state. Could it be that these two fellows can really reach the peak? A ridiculous thought suddenly popped up in his mind. It should be known that even he, the Palace Master of the Extreme Doctrine Palace, had entered the Emperor Extremity Mountain 3 times, but had never succeeded in reaching the peak. At this moment, they were still about 300 to 400 meters away from the peak, but the Palace Master of the Extreme Doctrine Palace was almost at his limit. He was certain that even if he gave it his all, he would only be able to advance another 100 meters. It was not embarrassing because in the history of the Emperor Extremity Mountain, no combat ancestor realm monarch had ever reached the peak. There were so many experts in the central region who could not do it, but could Xiao Chun and Lin Yun do it? When this thought appeared in his mind, the Palace Master of the Extreme Doctrine Palace's first reaction was to find it absurd. How is that possible? However, when he saw that Xiao Chun and Lin Yun were still walking towards the peak without stopping, he was a little suspicious. It was obvious that the two of them were still holding back, and they were not far from the peak. This meant that Xiao Chun and Lin Yun had a chance. How far is the best record on the Emperor Extremity Mountain? It seemed to be 50 meters away from the peak. Many years ago, it was set by an extremely powerful combat ancestor realm monarch. Now, the combat ancestor realm monarch had broken through to become a ruler and had an extremely high status in the central region. Don't tell me these two fellows really want to break the record? If that's the case, it'll cause a huge commotion in the central region. As he thought to himself, the Palace Master of the Extreme Doctrine Palace took a step forward again, trying his best to catch up with the two of them. Please collect, monthly vote, recommend. Chapter 3281. On the Emperor Extremity Mountain, Xiao Chun, Lin Yun, and the Palace Master of the Extreme Path Palace were still working hard towards the peak. The three of them were unwilling to admit defeat, especially the Palace Master of the Extreme Path Palace. He didn't want to lose to Xiao Chun and Lin Yun. While everyone was working hard to climb the Emperor Extremity Mountain, Dong Wang and the Palace Master of the Extreme Path Palace had arrived in the western region of the Fire Phoenix Galaxy. This was a region bordering the Azure Dragon Galaxy. Usually, there wasn't much going on here. However, recently, the western region had been bustling with activity. More and more powerhouses were rushing to the western region from the central region. There was only one reason for this: the Azure Dragon Galaxy. Previously, the negotiations between the two galaxies had broken down. The already bad relationship between the two galaxies had dropped to a freezing point. Moreover, from the various signs, it was likely that they would not be able to escape from a great battle that was about to come. For the sake of the Star-Lord's palace, they naturally had to make early preparations. This was the first time Dong Wang and the Palace Master of the Extreme Path Palace had come to the western region. "Sir Star-Lord, have you made up your mind to fight this time?" Dong Wang asked Black Matron with a smile on his face on the way to the Western Palace. Black Matron's expression remained unchanged. Her aged face was still calm as she replied, "We don't want to fight this war. It's not that we want to fight. It's just that this war is unavoidable. You should know about the conflict between the Azure Dragon Galaxy and the Fire Phoenix Galaxy. We cannot back down." Donghuang's smile gradually faded when he heard this. He understood what Black Matron meant. Indeed, this war couldn't be avoided. There was a spatial fault between the Fire Phoenix Galaxy and the Azure Dragon Galaxy. However, there was an entrance on this fault that connected the Fire Phoenix Galaxy and the Azure Dragon Galaxy. Originally, this entrance was jointly controlled by the two galaxies. However, the Azure Dragon Galaxy had always wanted to monopolize the entire entrance. The Fire Phoenix Galaxy naturally couldn't agree to this. If they allowed the Azure Dragon Galaxy to monopolize the entire entrance, wouldn't that be the same as handing over the key to their home to others? And the people of the Azure Dragon Galaxy would be able to enter the Fire Phoenix Galaxy at any time. This was a matter that concerned the survival of the entire galaxy. The Fire Phoenix Galaxy naturally couldn't give in. However, the Azure Dragon Galaxy's attitude was extremely overbearing. They had threatened to declare war on the Fire Phoenix Galaxy if they didn't hand over the entrance. Regarding this, the Fire Phoenix Galaxy could only choose to accept the challenge. No matter what, the control of the entrance could not be handed over. This concerned the safety of the entire Fire Phoenix Galaxy. Donghuang and the Supreme Tao Palace's great ancestor were well aware of this. The two of them took a deep breath and didn't say anything else. Once the two galaxies started a war, even rulers like them would not be able to decide anything. When the three of them arrived at the West Imperial Palace, a young man appeared before them out of thin air. He had a smile on his face and a folding fan in his hand. He looked just like a young master from a rich family. However, this young man was not to be underestimated. He was the master of the West Palace, the West Emperor. Moreover, due to the special geography of the Western region, the West Emperor's strength was actually not inferior to Black Matron's. It could be said that he was the strongest emperor among the four great palaces. It was precisely because of the presence of such an expert that the Western regions had been able to maintain peace for so many years. In addition, other than the West Emperor's personal strength, the overall strength of the West Imperial Palace far surpassed that of the other three imperial palaces. The number of combat ancestor realm kings in the West Imperial Palace alone was as many as 30 people. It was almost 3 times that of the East Imperial Palace. This couldn't be helped. Compared to the other 3 great regions, the Western region was definitely worthy of being called the front line. It was the front line against the Azure Dragon Galaxy. "Old man, you're here too? Oh, isn't this the kid from the Supreme Tao Palace?" The Supreme Tao Palace's great ancestor's face instantly darkened when he heard that. "Who's the kid? Haha, you're still the same as before. So boring." The West Emperor laughed indifferently in the face of the Supreme Tao Palace's great ancestor's scolding. As he spoke, the West Emperor welcomed the 3 of them into the main hall of the West Imperial Palace. At that moment, there were 2 other rulers in the main hall. These 2 had rushed over from the central region and were considered the vanguard. They were in charge of guarding against any unusual movements in the Azure Dragon Galaxy. Everyone knew each other. After greeting each other, Black Matron asked the West Emperor, "How is it? What's the situation now?" The West Emperor smiled helplessly in the face of Black Matron's question. How else can it be? What else can those people from the Azure Dragon Galaxy do other than increase their troops? The Azure Dragon Galaxy was still increasing its troops. At that moment, on the other side of the spatial fault between the Azure Dragon Galaxy and the Fire Phoenix Galaxy, the number of powerhouses from the Azure Dragon Galaxy was increasing. However, there were no signs of an attack for the time being. Hearing this, Black Matron frowned slightly. The fact that the Azure Dragon Galaxy hadn't rashly launched an attack wasn't good news. If the Azure Dragon Galaxy only wanted to fight a casual battle with the Fire Phoenix Galaxy, there was no need for them to be so cautious. This was because such a war was basically within a controllable range. Both sides could easily call for a halt and then continue with negotiations. However, the more cautious the Azure Dragon Galaxy was, the more cautious the Fire Phoenix Galaxy was. This meant that the Azure Dragon Galaxy was too ambitious. They even wanted to destroy the Fire Phoenix Galaxy in one fell swoop. They wanted to start a war that would engulf both galaxies. Once such a war started, it wouldn't be stopped at will. Even the Star-Lord couldn't do that. It seems that the Azure Dragon Galaxy is serious this time. How can this be fake? I say, old woman, you should quickly send experts over. I don't have much confidence in guarding the Western region. Why don't we just let Dong Wang and the brats stay? The Western Emperor said without any seriousness. Hearing this, the Supreme Dao Palace's great ancestor shouted in dissatisfaction. I'm not a brat. This guy definitely didn't have a filter on his mouth. If it wasn't for his strength, the Supreme Dao Palace's great ancestor would definitely teach him how to speak like that. However, after hearing this, Black Matron pondered for a moment and nodded. All right, let Dong Wang and the brats stay. This will also prevent any sudden movements from the Azure Dragon Galaxy. With Dong Wang and the brats staying, the Western region suddenly had 5 sovereigns guarding it. Such a force wasn't weak at all. Needless to say, apart from the sovereigns, the Western region had almost 50 battle ancestor realm kings. The Azure Dragon Galaxy was constantly increasing its troops. How could the Fire Phoenix Galaxy not be making preparations? Seeing Black Matron nod in agreement, the Western Emperor immediately smiled. As expected of an old woman with great foresight. All right, in order to welcome the arrival of Dong Wang and the brat, we won't go home until we're drunk tonight. For a moment, the Western Emperor waved his arms and shouted. Everyone at the side was speechless. This guy was still thinking about holding a banquet? Wasn't he nervous at all? Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 3282. Looking at West Emperor's appearance, even Black Matron's mouth twitched unconsciously. This guy's personality is really... If it weren't for his strength, he wouldn't have been placed in such an important place like the Western region. When she first accepted West Emperor, Elder Master Bai and Black Matron were conflicted. This guy's personality is really not calm enough. However, Dong Wang's strength was not enough to guard the Western region and deter the Azure Dragon Galaxy, so she had no choice but to choose West Emperor in the end. Looking at Black Matron's twitching mouth, West Emperor said with a smile, Old woman, what's wrong? Are you looking forward to the banquet tonight? Get lost. I'm warning you. You have to be careful during this period of time. Nothing can happen to the Western region. She scolded angrily, but then she reminded him a little worriedly. It's really because this is an eventful period and there can't be any mistakes. Unfortunately, in the face of Black Matron's warning, Like waved his hand indifferently. Don't worry, old woman. Sigh. She sighed helplessly. It's obvious that Like didn't listen to her at all. He didn't know that Dong Wang and the others had gone to the Western region to play, and they were directly stopped by Black Matron. At present, both galaxies are still in the preparation stage, so they're not too anxious for the time being. Moreover, if they're not wrong, there should be a final round of negotiations before the final war. After all, a full-scale war between two galaxies, once it breaks out, it can't be stopped easily, and it is extremely costly. Not to mention the Fire Phoenix Galaxy, even the Azure Dragon Galaxy. If there are other ways, they may not want to start a war. It's just that, in the current situation, the possibility of a successful negotiation is almost non-existent. What both sides want is something that the other side can't satisfy, and in the absence of a consensus, a war is inevitable. The scene in the Western region is like a storm, but Xiao Chun and the others know nothing about this. After all, this war is not up to Xiao Chun and the others to decide, and they are not even qualified to participate in a meeting. The only thing Xiao Chun and the others could do was to obey the orders of the palace of the Star Lord in the future. They would go wherever they were told to go. At this moment, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun were still climbing the Emperor Extremity Mountain. Right now, the two of them were only 50 meters away from the Emperor Extremity Mountain. Seeing that Xiao Chun and Lin Yun had actually made it this far, the extreme Dao Palace Master's face was filled with desolation. This was because he had completely stopped. He could no longer continue chasing after Xiao Chun. When he was 100 meters away from the peak, the extreme Path Palace Master had reached his limit and was unable to continue climbing. Xiao Chun and Lin Yun had already broken the record of the Emperor Extremity Mountain. This made the Palace Master of the Extreme Path Palace feel very conflicted. Was the difference really that big? One had to know that the pressure in the last 100 meters was incomparable to the previous ones. However, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun still had no intention of stopping. From the looks of it, the two of them really had a chance to reach the top. At this moment, not only the people from the Emperor Dong's palace, but even the people from the Extreme Path Palace had an indescribable expression. In any case, it was very complicated. As for Xiao Chun and Lin Yun, the two of them had no intention of paying attention to the others at this moment. This was because the two of them were currently enduring a terrifying pressure. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that Xiao Chun and Lin Yun had almost reached their limit. However, looking at the mountain peak that was close at hand, the two of them were unwilling to give up just like that. Since no one could reach the peak of the Emperor Extremity Mountain, they would become the people who made history. Gritting their teeth, the two of them continued to climb the mountain peak. With every step, it could be seen that their legs had already begun to tremble. However, the two of them still persevered. Under everyone's observation, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun walked step by step. Their speed wasn't fast, but they never stopped. In the end, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun reached the peak of the Emperor Extremity Mountain at almost the same time. Did they really go up? It could be said that he had witnessed the entire process of how Xiao Chun and Lin Yun reached the peak of the mountain. The Extreme Path Palace's palace master could not help but murmur. The place where no one had ever reached the peak was now under the feet of Xiao Chun and Lin Yun. Am I witnessing history? It was not difficult to imagine what kind of uproar this news would cause in the central region if it were to spread. Phew, I'm clearly not on good terms with the Emperor Dong's palace. But now, even as the palace master of the Extreme Path Palace, I can't help but admire Xiao Chun and Lin Yun. It seemed that the Emperor Dong's evaluation of the two of them was not false at all. As long as the two of them did not die, their status as rulers was almost certain. They only needed enough time. In the entire Fire Phoenix galaxy, other than Xiao Chun and Lin Yun, who dared to say that they would definitely be able to break through to become a ruler. This was impossible, but Xiao Chun and Lin Yun had done it. It's better not to provoke such people, the palace master thought to himself. Fortunately, although many things had happened before, at least the Extreme Path Palace did not really offend Xiao Chun and Lin Yun. There was still a possibility of easing their relationship in the future. Completely unaware of the complicated feelings in the palace master's heart, after successfully reaching the peak of the mountain, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun directly sat cross-legged. As expected of the peak of the mountain, the heavenly thunderbolts and the origin of laws here were dozens or even hundreds of times more than at the foot of the mountain. It's indeed worthy of its reputation. Xiao Chun could not help but smile. The peak of the mountain was really a good place. Xiao Chun even had a premonition that his cultivation, which had not moved for a long time, was slowly improving. Make the best use of your time to cultivate. Hearing Xiao Chun's words, Lin Yun, who was at the side, said, every time the Emperor Extremity Mountain opened, there was a limit to the time. Now that they had climbed to the peak with great difficulty, it was better to make the best use of their time to cultivate. After all, it would be too much of a pity to waste time here. Hearing this, Xiao Chun did not say anything else. He closed his eyes and began to cultivate. Wisps of the origin of laws continued to enter his body. With the help of these origin of laws, Xiao Chun's cultivation was indeed increasing rapidly. If this continued, he would not be far from becoming a ruler. Although he could not be sure that he would be able to break through to become a ruler this time, according to Xiao Chun's guess, the Emperor Extremity Mountain was not the only cultivation treasure in the central region. There were also a few other places that were not inferior to the Emperor Extremity Mountain. If he could walk through all of these places, Xiao Chan was at least 80% confident that he could break through to become a ruler. This was not arrogance, but confidence. This was because Xiao Chan had vaguely touched the threshold of becoming a ruler and entered a mysterious state. Please collect, monthly vote, recommend. Chapter 3283. Cultivating in the Emperor Extremity Mountain was really a strange feeling. It was the first time Xiao Chan had such a feeling. It was as if he had touched something, but there seemed to be no change. It was hard to tell if it was real or not. He sat down cross-legged and cultivated with Lin Yun on the mountain peak. After everyone was immersed in cultivation, the Emperor Extremity Mountain became extremely quiet again. Every time the Emperor Extremity Mountain opened, it would last for a month. Within a month, everyone could cultivate in the Emperor Extremity Mountain without worry. After a month, it would be sent out by a mysterious force. After that, the Emperor Extremity Mountain would be closed again for 100 years. It was said that this was because every time the Emperor Extremity Mountain opened, it would consume a lot of energy. 100 years was to recover the energy. It was like charging a battery. In this regard, the Extreme Path Palace had never tried to break the seal of the Emperor Extremity Mountain by force. Because according to the Extreme Path Palace, once the seal of the Emperor Extremity Mountain was broken, it would likely cause some irreparable damage. At that time, if the entire Emperor Extremity Mountain was destroyed, the loss would outweigh the gain. Time passed day by day. Xiao Chun and Lin Yun were like old monks in meditation. They couldn't even sense their own aura. At the same time, while everyone was cultivating on a continent located in the northern part of the central region, extremely far away from the Extreme Path Palace. At this moment, in a beautiful fairyland, there were jade pavilions and clouds. It was as if one could touch the clouds in the sky by reaching out. In such a paradise on earth, a young man and a beautiful woman sat opposite each other, and there were a few beautiful maids standing respectfully by their side. Just these maidservants alone had already reached the Tao Transformation Realm. Using Tao Transformation Realm cultivators as maids showed that these two people's identities weren't simple. The beautiful woman's face was a little gloomy at this moment. A trace of killing intent flashed in her eyes. Previously, the Divine Secret Pavilion sent a message saying that the bitch is still alive. However, they couldn't calculate her exact location. However, the Divine Secret Pavilion calculated two people. They know where the bitch is. Hearing the beautiful woman's words, the young man took a sip of tea and said lazily, "Oh, after so many years, the Pavilion of Divination has finally made some progress. Who is it?" Xiao Chun and Lin Yun from Emperor Dong's palace. The beautiful woman said hatefully. However, the young man's expression did not change at all. Emperor Dong's palace? That's interesting. She's not from the central region, but she's related to the eastern region. Could it be that she went to the eastern region? That makes sense. Otherwise, why hasn't anyone been seen alive or dead for so many years? The young man said with great interest. But after hearing these words, the killing intent in the beautiful woman's heart grew stronger and stronger. No matter what, that bitch must die. Moreover, I've already found out that Xiao, Chun, and Lin Yun are in the central region right now. They're in the Extreme Path Palace. They went to Emperor Extremity Mountain. That should be the case. Otherwise, he wouldn't have gone to the Extreme Path Palace for anything else. That's simple. Just get someone to bring the two of them back. I'll ask them myself. Xiao Chun and Lin Yun definitely did not know the two of them. However, at this moment, the two of them were preparing to attack Xiao, Chun, and Lin Yun. However, why would the two of them attack Xiao, Chun, and Lin Yun? Be careful. It said that the two of them are kings of the combat ancestor realm. They're not weak. Should I ask the 7 elders of the Big Dipper to go? After hearing the young man mention the 7 elders of the Big Dipper, a strange look flashed across the beautiful woman's eyes. She nodded her head in agreement. However, she immediately asked worriedly, "My son can ask the 7 elders of the Big Dipper to go? They're not easy to talk to." "Don't worry. Previously, they owed my father a favor. A few years ago, they also owed me a favor. They can't refuse my request. What do you think, Mother? That's not a problem. With the 7 elders of the Big Dipper personally taking action, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun won't be able to cause any trouble. All right, then I'll contact the 7 elders and ask them to make a trip to the Extreme Path Palace immediately and bring the 2 of them back. While the mother and son were talking, Yunran did not put Xiao Chun and Lin Yun in her eyes. It was as if, in their opinion, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun were existences that could be easily dealt with. Even if the 2 of them were kings of the combat ancestor realm, under his pressure, they were nothing. In front of his mother, the young man quickly contacted the 7 elders of the Big Dipper and sneered. This time, you have nowhere to run, right, Fengming? They had no idea that the 2 of them were being targeted. Once a month's time was up, Xiao Chun and the others were forcefully sent out of the Emperor Extremity Mountain. When they reappeared at the foot of the Emperor Extremity Mountain, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun's eyes flashed with helplessness. In the past month, the 2 of them had gained a lot. However, it was a pity that the time was too short. If only they had more time, that would be great. As if he could see through Xiao Chun and Lin Yun's thoughts, Lai Wan smiled mischievously. Brother Xiao Chun, brother Lin Yun, although the Emperor Extremity Mountain is good, it's not omnipotent. Moreover, it's about breaking through to the Emperor realm. There's nothing to be disappointed about. That's true. Hearing that, Xiao Chun nodded in agreement. It would be strange if it was so easy to break through to the Emperor realm. In short, this trip to the Emperor Extremity Mountain was indeed worthwhile. The Emperor Extremity Mountain has been closed. If there's nothing else, please leave as soon as possible. The palace master of the Extreme Path Palace looked at Xiao Chun and the others who were chatting and said calmly. It was obvious that he did not welcome them. After all, the previous incident had made both sides unhappy. It would be strange if the Extreme Path Palace welcomed the people from Emperor Dong's palace. Xiao Chun and the others ignored him. Since the Emperor Extremity Mountain had been closed, they naturally would not stay for long. After returning to their residence and staying for a night, Lai Wan and the others were ready to leave and return to Emperor Dong's palace. Emperor Dong's palace could not be without a king to guard it. Xiao Chun and Lin Yun personally sent them off. After that, the 2 of them discussed what to do next. We don't have a clear goal for the time being. Why don't we just move around casually? Lin Yun said. There was no news of a cultivation treasure land opening for the time being. Lin Yun planned to walk around the central region and look around. Who knew if there would be any unexpected gains? Hearing that, Xiao Chun nodded in agreement. After all, they had never been to the central region before. There was no harm in walking around. Moreover, wasn't this the nature of training? Many things were full of uncertainty. All right, it's decided then. Let's leave today. Anyway, they don't like us very much. Xiao Chun smiled. The Extreme Path Palace did not welcome them, so there was no need for them to stay. It would be good to leave as soon as possible. Yes, let Lin Yuan and the others pack up and leave. Begging for your collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 3284. Since the decision had been made, Xiao Chun and the others were ready to set off immediately. As for the Extreme Path Palace, there was no need to pay too much attention to them. They were already about to chase them out. So what was there to say? Everything that had happened before had caused the relationship between the Extreme Path Palace and the Emperor Dong's palace to drop to a freezing point. If it had not been for the imminent war between the Fire Phoenix Galaxy and the Azure Dragon Galaxy, the Extreme Path Palace and the Emperor Dong's palace would have been at a standstill. The enmity between the 2 great forces would not have been resolved so easily if Dong Huang and the Patriarch of the Extreme Path Palace knew who was more important. After Dong Huang and the Patriarch of the Extreme Path Palace left, both of them had sent a message back. There was only one purpose, and that was to warn everyone that they absolutely could not cause any more trouble at the moment, let alone take the initiative to stir up trouble. The situation at the front line was worse than they had imagined. If they were to engage in internal strife at this time, they would definitely be challenging the bottom line of the Hall of the Star-Lord. It would have been fine at other times, But the current situation meant that the Hall of the Star-Lord had focused almost all of its efforts on the Azure Dragon Galaxy. Naturally, it did not have much time to deal with other matters, let alone internal strife within its own galaxy. Therefore, if anyone dared to show their face at this time, the Hall of the Star-Lord would definitely exterminate them with a thunderous force. Times had changed, and one should not use normal thinking to speculate about the Hall of the Star-Lord now. This was also what Black Granny had specifically warned Dong Wang and the Patriarch of the Extreme Path Palace. It was precisely because of this that Xiao Chun and the others from the Extreme Path Palace restrained themselves. There wasn't anything to pack up. In just a quarter of an hour, everyone was ready. Let's set off then. Xiao Chun smiled as he looked at Lin Yuan, Long Qing, and the others. Upon hearing this, everyone nodded in agreement. However, just as everyone stepped out of the courtyard and was about to leave, a Grand Elder of the Extreme Path Palace suddenly appeared and spoke to everyone with a strange expression. Brother Xiao Chun, Brother Lin Yun, the Palace Master has something to tell you to go to the main hall. The Palace Master of the Extreme Path Palace? Upon hearing this, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun were a little puzzled. Wasn't this guy eager for them to leave as soon as possible? Why had he taken the initiative to look for them? Xiao Chun did not believe that this guy would be kind enough to send them off. However, since he was already here, it wouldn't be good if he didn't go. After a moment of silence, Xiao Chun nodded in agreement. All right. Then, under the lead of the Supreme Elder, the group of people came to the main hall of the Supreme Doctrine Palace. However, what was even more strange was that when Xiao Chun and the others arrived, the Palace Master of Extreme Path Palace, the Supreme Elders of Extreme Path Palace, and 7 Battle Ancestor Realm Kings that Xiao Chun didn't recognize at all were already waiting outside the main hall. What is this guy trying to do by having us come here with such a lineup? Xiao Chun looked at the Palace Master of Extreme Path Palace calmly. He didn't say anything. He wasn't worried that the people from Extreme Path Palace would dare to make a move. As long as they weren't stupid, they would know that they couldn't make a move now. Otherwise, His Highness Star-Lord wouldn't forgive them. After all, Black Granny had already said what she wanted to say, and this was a special time. If Extreme Path Palace insisted on doing what they wanted, then they really didn't care about the Palace of the Star-Lord. Upon seeing Xiao Chen's calm expression, the Palace Master of Extreme Path Palace sneered in his heart. He naturally guessed what Xiao Chen was thinking. Indeed, he didn't dare to make a move. However, this time, it wasn't the Extreme Path Palace that was looking for trouble. It was the phone people that were looking for trouble. This had nothing to do with the Extreme Path Palace. Therefore, the Palace Master of Extreme Path Palace didn't hesitate and said directly, Taoist Xiao Chun, Taoist Lin Yun, these 7 are the 7 Big Dipper Elders of the phone people. This time, they're the ones looking for the 2 of you. The Extreme Path Palace is only responsible for passing on a message. You can chat among yourselves. After saying that, he led the Supreme Elders of Extreme Path Palace to the side, as though he was waiting to watch a show. The Extreme Path Palace was happy to see Xiao Chun and the others get into a conflict with the phone people. After all, it had nothing to do with them. Upon hearing this, Xiao Chun glanced coldly at the people of the Extreme Path Palace, who were acting like vile people intoxicated with success. However, his gaze quickly landed on the 7 Big Dipper Elders of the phone people. To be honest, Xiao Chun didn't know the phone people at all, let alone have any enmity with them. However, the 7 Big Dipper Elders had come over and said that they were looking for him. Xiao Chun thought about it, and there seemed to be only one reason: Feng Ming. Apart from this, Xiao Chun couldn't think of any other possibility. However, if the phone people were looking for Feng Ming, why would they look for him? To be honest, the phone people were too powerful. The Extreme Path Palace couldn't be compared to them. Xiao Chun really didn't want to get involved in this. However, it seemed like this wasn't something he could hide from even if he wanted to. He didn't want to do this, but the other party had come knocking on his door. What could he do? Are you Xiao Chun and Lin Yun? Come with us. One of the 7 Big Dipper Elders looked at Xiao Chun and Lin Yun and said indifferently. It was obvious that he didn't take Xiao Chun and Lin Yun seriously. His tone was like an order, and he didn't care whether Xiao Chun and Lin Yun agreed or not. Lin Yun sneered at this. You didn't even say why you were looking for the two of us. Isn't it a little too much to talk to us like this? With Lin Yun's temper, she naturally wouldn't agree to leave with them. Lin Yun obviously didn't understand the character of the Feng people. As the oldest force in the Fire Phoenix galaxy, the Feng people had always been arrogant to the extreme. In their opinion, as long as it was an order from the Feng people, even if you were a warlord, you had to obey unconditionally. This was also a fact. In the central region, even warlord wouldn't dare to disobey the Feng people in the slightest. Even a ruler would choose to be courteous under normal circumstances. This was because apart from being overbearing, the Feng people were famous for being protective and unreasonable. There was once an emperor who had killed a prodigy of the Feng people. After that, the Feng people asked him to compensate and apologize, but the emperor didn't agree. In the end, the Phoenixes sent out a ruler and 10 Peak War Ancestor Realm Kings to form a battle formation and forcefully killed the ruler. The death of a ruler was definitely a shocking matter. Moreover, the Feng people killed a ruler for such a reason. This could no longer be described as ridiculous. From then on, all the major forces and powerhouses in the central region knew that the Feng people were a race that didn't care about reason at all. Moreover, they were extremely domineering. Anyone who dared to disobey them would suffer the revenge of the Feng people. As time passed, not many people dared to offend the Feng people. This was because everyone knew that if you killed a Feng person, you would only attract more and more powerhouses from the Feng people. Please collect, vote, recommend. Chapter 3285. The Feng people were used to being overbearing in the central region. Basically, no one dared to go against the Feng people. Moreover, the 7 elders of the Feng people had come personally this time. They did not care about Xiao Chun and his group at all. Even among the Feng people, the 7 elders of the Big Dipper had a very high status. They were only second to the 2 patriarchs of the Feng people. However, other people might not dare to offend the Feng people because of their power and influence. However, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun did not have such thoughts. They did not want to have a conflict with the Feng people. However, this did not mean that Xiao Chun and his group were afraid of the Feng people. Those who knew Xiao Chun and Lin Yun well knew that these 2 people were absolutely bold. Perhaps they did not know what fear was in their bones. Originally, they wanted to avoid the Feng people. However, now that they had come to find them, there was no way to avoid them. In that case, it was up to them. How dare you? The Feng people have ordered you to come with me. How dare you refuse? As Lin Yun's voice fell, one of the 7 elders of the Big Dipper shouted angrily. Seeing the 7 elders of the Big Dipper angry, the palace master of the Extreme Path Palace sneered in his heart. This group of people was really bold. They even dared to offend the Feng people. Very well. Did they really think that the Feng people would be afraid of the Emperor Dong's palace? The Feng people could not be compared to the Extreme Path Palace. There was a huge difference between the two. If they offended the Feng people, even Emperor Dong would not be able to save them. For a moment, the palace master of the Extreme Path Palace felt a sense of satisfaction. This time, Xiao Chun and his group were definitely going to suffer great loss. However, he did not expect that Xiao Chun and Lin Yun's expressions would remain unchanged even in the face of the 7 elders of the Big Dipper, who were already angry. Xiao Chun was not afraid at all as he sneered. Who do you think you are, Feng people? With just one sentence, you want us to go with you? You don't know your place. As soon as he said that, the people of the Extreme Path Palace were stunned. They looked at Xiao Chun speechlessly. Did these people not know how terrifying the Feng people were? Or were they really unscrupulous? It should be known that even the palace master of the Extreme Path Palace was polite to the 7 elders of the Big Dipper. Even though this was the Extreme Path Palace's territory, they did not dare to offend the Feng people. However, Xiao Chun and the others did not seem to care about the Phoenix clan at all. Furthermore, they did not seem to be nervous or afraid at all. 7 elders of the Big Dipper Palace's Big Dipper. The old man who spoke earlier immediately shouted angrily, courting death. The elder threw a palm attack at Xiao Chun as he spoke. Xiao Chen did not back down in the slightest. He pointed with his finger and a beam of sword aura shot out. As Xiao to Li to the point. The 7 elders of the Big Dipper Palace were all peak kings of the Battle Ancestor realm. In addition, they had the bloodline of the Foam people. They were very powerful, but it was impossible for them to take down Xiao Chen. However, Xiao Chen's counterattack was another unforgivable provocation in the eyes of the 7 elders of the Big Dipper. Not only was he disrespectful to the Foam people, he even dared to counterattack. He did not show any respect to the Foam people. Good. Let's attack together. Cripple them first. The Dipper laughed in anger. Then, he said to the other 6 people beside him, since Xiao Chen and Lin Yun were not willing to listen to the orders of the Foam people, they could not be blamed. Anyway, the young master only said to bring them back. As for whether they were crippled or not, it did not matter. Hearing this, there was no point in keeping them here. They all nodded in agreement. CGN. B****************************** CGN. The 7 Big Dipper elders moved at the same time, attacking Xiao Chen and Lin Yun. Naturally, Xiao Chen and Lin Yun would not cower in the face of the 7 Big Dipper elders' attacks. They immediately charged forward to meet them head-on. As for Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others, they did not have the ability to fight against Battle Ancestor Realm Kings, let alone Battle Ancestor Realm Kings like the 7 Great Bear Elders. Let's leave first. Before the fight began, Xiao Chen and Lin Yun sent a message to Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others at the same time, telling them to take this opportunity to leave the Extreme Doctrine Palace. As for the 2 of them, they would take the opportunity to leave after they were done stalling for time. When they saw Xiao Chen and his companion fighting against the 7 Big Dipper Elders, the expressions of the people from the Extreme Path Palace instantly became very interesting. They had really started fighting. Moreover, it was in their Extreme Dao Palace Masters Plaza. At this moment, in the face of this fierce battle, the rules of the Extreme Path Palace simply didn't exist. Fighting in the palace was a joke. The Extreme Path Palace Master and the other upper echelons of the Extreme Path Palace had no way to stop it. What a joke! On one side was Xiao Chen and Lin Yun, who did not even care about the Foam people, while on the other side was the overbearing 7 Big Dipper Elders. Who would care about the words of the Extreme Path Palace? Palace Master, what should we do now? The 2 sides had only clashed once, but in an instant, the entire hall was almost completely destroyed. Huge holes were torn in the ground. The main hall was on the verge of collapse. It looked like it would collapse at any moment. Hearing the Supreme Elder's question, the Extreme Path Palace Master's lips curled into a smile. What else can we do? Evacuate the disciples. As for them, we don't have to care about them. Xiao Chen, the Extreme Path Palace Master, definitely did not want to get involved in the matter between Lin Yun and the Foam people, let alone stop it. Therefore, even though they were in the Extreme Path Palace, the Palace Master could only allow them to fight. Based on this point alone, it was not difficult to see how weak the people of the Extreme Path Palace were. Regardless of the reason, the other party had already acted so recklessly in their territory. As the Palace Master of the Extreme Path Palace, he did not even dare to say anything. Wasn't this a joke? What made them even more speechless was that the group of Grand Elders actually agreed with the Extreme Path Palace Master without the slightest objection. Was this how a great power should behave? On one hand, they kept talking about the sex reputation. On the other hand, no one dared to step forward and say anything when they really encountered a situation. Anyone with the slightest bit of courage would have at least asked Xiao Chen and the others to get the hell out of the Extreme Path Palace before fighting. This was a very normal thing to do. Unfortunately, the Palace Lord of the Extreme Path Palace did not have the guts or the courage to do so. Therefore, he could only watch as Xiao Chen and the others fought with the 7 Big Dipper Elders in their own territory. Xiao Chen, Lin Yun, and the 7 Big Dipper Elders naturally did not care about the loss of the Extreme Path Palace. After all, it had nothing to do with them. They only cared about attacking and did not care about the damage caused by the aftermath of the battle. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others quickly left the Extreme Path Palace. Although the 7 Big Dipper elders saw this, they did not stop them. Their target was only Shao Chun and Lin Yun. As for Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others, since the young master did not say anything, they naturally did not need to care. Please add, please vote, please recommend. If you like Swordmaster Bahuang, please bookmark. Swordmaster Bahuang updates the fastest. Chapter 3286. The 7 elders of the Big Dipper sect had a clear goal. The fact that they did not stop Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others was good news for Shao Chun. It was 2 against 7, and each of the 7 elders of the Big Dipper sect was at the peak of the combat ancestor realm. In terms of combat power, they were all above the palace master of the Extreme Doctrine Palace. Under such circumstances, Shao Chun and Lin Yun would not be able to gain any advantage. The truth was indeed so. From the beginning of the battle until now, Shao Chun and Lin Yun had been suppressed. Knowing that the 2 of them were no match for the 7 elders of the Big Dipper sect, Shao Chun asked Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others to leave first. Only when they left would Shao Chun and Lin Yun be able to escape better. To put it bluntly, Shao Chun and Lin Yun had never thought of fighting to the death with the 7 elders of the Big Dipper sect. They thought that if they fought to the death, there would only be one outcome. They would be captured by the 7 elders or killed on the spot. Shao Chun and Lin Yun's real plan was to stall the 7 elder for the time being and give Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others enough time to leave safely. They would then think of a way to escape. As the battle continued, Shao Chun and Lin Yun were obviously getting more and more difficult to resist. The palace master of the Extreme Doctrine Palace sneered. This time, they would not be able to escape. He felt an indescribable sense of satisfaction in his heart. It was as if the palace master of the Extreme Doctrine Palace felt very comfortable as long as he saw Shao Chun and Lin Yun suffer. However, he did not think about it. What did all of this have to do with him? It could even be said that the Extreme Doctrine Palace was the victim of this incident. He looked around. Because of the battle between Shao Chun and the 7 elders of the Big Dipper sect, more than half of the Extreme Doctrine Palace had been destroyed. However, as the palace master, he did not even dare to let out a fart. As an overlord of a region, it was indeed laughable for the palace master of the Extreme Path Palace to act to such an extent. What was there to be proud of? Calculating the time, it had been an hour since Lin Yuan and the others left in Long Qing. Shao Chun and Lin Yun looked at each other calmly. After persisting for an hour, Shao Chun and Lin Yun were under a lot of pressure. It was time to retreat. If they continued to fight, it would be meaningless and they would have no chance of winning. I will remember what happened today. You phone people are very good. Shao Chun said coldly as he slashed out dozens of sword cheese. All of them were monarch swords, forcing back the 7 Big Dipper elders who had besieged him. In the face of Shao Chun's sudden outburst, the 4 old men's expressions turned extremely ugly. They had never imagined that Shao Chun had actually hidden so much of his strength. If Shao Chun had unleashed such an attack at the beginning, the 4 of them probably wouldn't have had it so easy. Now that Shao Chun had suddenly unleashed his power, his purpose was self-evident. As soon as he finished speaking, a formation disc appeared in Shao Chun's hand. This was a teleportation formation disc. It wasn't something too advanced, but it was a very practical life-saving item. Once activated, it could teleport the user to any place thousands of miles away at random. Stop him. With just a glance, it wasn't difficult for the 7 Big Dipper elders to see that Shao Chun was about to escape. Immediately, the 4 of them rushed towards Shao Chun, intending to stop him. However, they had been forced to retreat by Shao Chun. It was obviously too late for the 4 of them to make a move now. They watched helplessly as Shao Chun activated the formation disc and then disappeared in an instant. On the other side, Lin Yun did the same. She suddenly unleashed her power and forced the 3 elders to retreat. Then, she used the formation disc to escape. Seeing Shao Chun and Lin Yun disappear before their eyes, the 7 Big Dipper elders' faces turned ugly. *M in it. One of them cursed angrily. In response, the other one spoke up. They shouldn't have gone far. Let's search for them first. Also, let's report this matter back to the young master. The 7 of them discussed as if nothing had happened. They didn't care about the destruction of the Extreme Path Palace at all. At that moment, the palace master of the Extreme Path Palace and the group of supreme elders came forward, wanting to say something. However, the 7 Big Dipper elders didn't give them the chance to do so. After making their own decisions, they left without even a word of apology. Perhaps in their opinion, the loss of the Extreme Path Palace was nothing. As for the loss of face, it was even more laughable. Since when did the phone people need to care about the Extreme Path Palace's face? Looking at the messy Extreme Path Palace, the palace master of the Extreme Path Palace wanted to cry, but had no tears. This was truly an unexpected disaster. What did the phone people, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun's matter, have to do with the Extreme Path Palace? Why did the Extreme Path Palace have to bear all of this in the end? Palace Master, what should we do now? One of the Supreme Elders looked at the Palace Master of the Extreme Path Palace and asked. Hearing that, the Palace Master of the Extreme Path Palace's expression turned gloomy. However, in the end, he sighed helplessly. Forget it. Get someone to repair it. This was the Extreme Path Palace. When facing the phone people, they didn't dare to show the slightest bit of dissatisfaction. Even though this matter was caused by the phone people, the Extreme Path Palace still chose to swallow their anger. They didn't even dare to ask about it. Speaking of which, it was quite pitiful. While the Extreme Path Palace suffered a hidden loss, on the other side, in the phone people who knew how many tens of thousands of miles away, the 7 Big Dipper elders had already returned with news. In the same fairyland-like place, the handsome young master was lazily leaning against the pavilion. In front of him was the same beautiful woman. However, at this moment, the beautiful woman's expression was somewhat unsightly as she spoke. Truly a bunch of trash. The 7 of them acted together, and they actually let them escape? Mother, be careful with your words. The 7 Big Dipper elder statuses are not low. Even I have no right to command them. This time, the 7 Big Dipper elders only agreed to act because they owed us a favor. After being reminded by her son, the beautiful woman also realized that she had said something wrong. However, she still said stubbornly, "But now that they're gone, what should we do?" Originally, she had thought that the 7 Big Dipper elders would act personally and bring back 2 battle ancestor realm kings. That would be a sure thing, and there wouldn't be any accidents. However, who would have thought that they would fail in the end? The 2 of them had escaped. She was somewhat speechless. Compared to the beautiful woman's worry and anxiety, the young man had been extremely shocked the entire time. Or perhaps, he was extremely indifferent. There was even a faint smile on the corner of his mouth. "Mother, you're wrong. Run? Where could they have run to?" "My son, what do you mean?" Regarding this, the beautiful woman was somewhat puzzled. Then, she saw the young man, smiling confidently, as if everything was under his control. As for Xiao Chun and Lin Yun, they were merely 2 chess pieces in his hands. In the central region, when have the people that the phone people are looking for ever escaped? When have the people that I want ever failed? Mother, don't worry. They're just 2 clowns. They won't be able to jump around for too long. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 3287. The handsome young master chuckled confidently. Hearing his words, the beautiful woman on the other side of the table hesitated for a moment before nodding her head. "My son has grown up. Mother won't interfere in this matter." "Mother, don't worry. These 2 people won't be able to escape." Soon, the phone people issued an order to capture Xiao, Chun, and Lin Yun. On the 10 Directions continent, the 7 Big Dipper elders also began to search for Xiao Chun and Lin Yun. However, despite the 7 Big Dipper elders' search, they still couldn't find Xiao Chun and Lin Yun's whereabouts. Looks like they've already escaped from the 10 Directions continent. Probably, but now that the young master has issued an arrest warrant, they won't be able to escape from the central region. Although the 7 Big Dipper elders were disappointed that they couldn't capture Xiao Chun and Lin Yun, they didn't care too much about it, only feeling a little embarrassed. Now, The young master had sent a message saying that he had issued an arrest warrant and the 7 Big Dipper elders were responsible for it. Naturally, the 7 Big Dipper elders weren't unfamiliar with the Feng people's arrest warrant. They were confident that Xiao Chun and Lin Yun wouldn't be able to escape. In fact, this was indeed the case. In the past, the Feng people had issued an arrest warrant and it had never failed. The Feng people's influence in the central region was terrifying, therefore, not many forces dared to ignore the Feng people's arrest warrant. This meant that once the arrest warrant was issued, there would be no place for Xiao Chun and Lin Yun to hide in the central region. The Feng people's reaction was fast, but by this time, Xiao Chun's group had successfully left the 10 Directions continent. Naturally, it was impossible for them to stay on the 10 Directions continent for long. After successfully leaving, Xiao Chun quickly contacted the others with a voice transmission talisman, and the group arrived at the agreed location. Seeing that everyone was safe and sound, Xiao Chun breathed a sigh of relief. He then took out the space spirit boat, and the group quickly left. In the endless space, the space spirit boat cruised leisurely. The central region was huge, especially in space, so the Feng people wouldn't be able to find their whereabouts in a short period of time. However, at that moment, the crowd that had gathered together were sitting in a circle in the ship's cabin. They were drinking and cursing angrily. The Phoenix clan is a little too arrogant. Do you really think that we are pushovers? I didn't think that after so many years, I would be hunted down again. This is quite nostalgic. Are you a masochist? Why are you so emotional when you're being hunted down? Everyone was talking. They were being chased by the Feng people for no reason. With their tempers, they naturally couldn't stand it. Now, they were all waiting for Xiao Chun and Lin Yun's decision. As for Xiao Chun and Lin Yun, although they didn't say anything, with their personalities, they definitely wouldn't let it go so easily. So what do you think? After taking a sip of wine, Lin Yun looked at Xiao Chun and asked. Hearing this, Xiao Chun's expression did not change, but the corner of his mouth revealed a cold smile. What else can I think? Since I've already been bullied, I naturally can't swallow this humiliation. But we don't have the ability to contend with the Feng people yet. If we can't deal with those old monsters, can't we deal with those juniors? I can't do it. The Feng people don't come out to gain experience. Besides, I've already sensed the opportunity to break through to a ruler. It shouldn't take long. When I break through to a ruler, I'll personally go to the Feng people to seek justice. For the time being, there was no way to deal with the entire Feng people. However, Xiao Chun did not intend to swallow this humiliation, so his target was the juniors of the Feng people. As for the rules, Xiao Chun did not care at all. Moreover, the Feng people were the ones who broke the rules first. A good person was doing well at home, but trouble came from the sky. Who could tolerate it, let alone Xiao Chun? As for the future, Xiao Chun would definitely not let the Feng people have an easy time. Initially, he did not want to provoke them, but the Feng people had sent themselves to his door, so he could not blame anyone. Moreover, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun both had a premonition that they were going to break through to a ruler, but they still lacked an opportunity in time. Even so, both of them were confident that perhaps after passing through a few cultivation treasures, their cultivations would definitely be able to break through. When the time came, Xiao Chun would definitely kiss the Feng people and let the Feng people know the price of provoking him. Even the Feng people would probably have to be careful when dealing with 2 rulers. The Feng people could look down on second kings, but they definitely did not dare to look down on 2 rulers. After all, in the entire Feng people, there were only 2 rulers. Let's collect some interest first. After we break through to a ruler, we'll settle the score together. Xiao Chun said coldly. There was no way he could swallow the fact that he had suffered an undeserved calamity. Just like that, they traveled in the starry sky. After a few days, they arrived at a continent called the White Rock Continent. The White Rock Continent was also well known in the central region. There is also a cultivation treasures land on this continent, and its reputation was not inferior to that of the Emperor Extremity Mountain. This cultivation treasures land was called the Heavenly White Rock Lake, and it happened to be controlled by the Star-Lord's palace. Since they had come to the White Rock continent by chance, Shao Chun and the others naturally had to go to the heavenly White Rock Lake. Moreover, it should not be a problem for Shao Chun and the others to enter the heavenly White Rock Lake. After all, Shao Chun and the others were members of the Star-Lord's palace. It was reasonable for their members to enter the heavenly White Rock Lake to cultivate. However, after entering the White Rock continent, Shao Chun and the others soon found the Feng people's arrest warrant. The moment they saw the arrest warrant, Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others exploded with anger. Were the Feng people really going to fight to the death? They came to capture Shao Chun and Lin Yun for no reason, and then failed. Now, they even issued an arrest warrant. They clearly did not offend the Feng people, but now, the Feng people were obviously going to fight to the death. They're going too far. Do the Feng people really think that we don't have a temper? Lin Hu angrily scolded. As for Shao Chun and Lin Yun, they did not say anything, but the coldness in their eyes became more and more intense. Very good. The Feng people really kept challenging their bottom line. Not only did they fail, but they even issued an arrest warrant. If they didn't know, they would think that they had some irreconcilable enmity with the Feng people. Since the Phoenix clan was pushing him so hard, Shao Chun did not have the slightest hesitation. After all, there was already a feud between the two sides, and Shao Chun was not someone who was afraid of trouble. If the Phoenix clan did not want him to have peace, then the Phoenix clan would not have peace either. With cold eyes, Shao Chun and Lin Yun took the lead and walked into the city. This city was not big, but coincidentally, at the same time as Shao Chun and the others entered the city. In front of them, a few young disciples of the Feng people walked over. Seeing this group of Feng people's disciples, Shao Chun's eyes flashed with killing intent. Since things had already reached this point, Shao Chun was not afraid of making things worse. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 3288. Enemies are bound to meet on a narrow road. Before Shao Chun could speak, Long Qing said with a cold smile, "The Feng people were easy to recognize. Every Feng people was born with a phoenix mark on their forehead. This was the symbol of the Feng people. Hence, Shao Chun and the others could tell the identity of this group of people at a glance. They were all very young and very weak. The strongest among them was only a world lord, while the rest were mostly in the Tao transformation realm. It seemed like they were the disciples of the Feng people who went out to train. Originally, it might have been a little too much to attack a junior. But now, the Phoenix clan had issued a wanted order. In the eyes of Shao Chun and the others, the Feng people wanted to fight to the death with them. Since that was the case, there was no need to be polite. Kill them, Lin Yun said calmly. Hearing this, Lin Yuan, Lin Hu, and the others naturally chose to attack without hesitation. This was still in the city. The disciples of the Feng people did not expect that someone would dare to attack them here. Furthermore, they did not even know who Shao Chun and his group were. Yet, this group of people charged at them without saying a word. They had all broken through to the divine ancestor realm. It was too easy for Lin Yuan, Lin Hu, and the others to deal with the disciples of the Feng people. They killed several people with a casual attack. The disciples of the Feng people could not do anything in the hands of Lin Yuan, Lin Hu, and the others. Divine ancestor realm. The sudden change stunned the disciples of the Feng people. When they came back to their senses, the leader said in surprise. They did not expect a group of divine ancestor realm experts to attack them. What was even more ridiculous was that this group of people did not know that they were from the Feng people. In the central region, they dared to kill the disciples of the Feng people in front of so many people. Did these people not want to live anymore? Not to mention that they were only at the divine ancestor realm. Even battle ancestor realm kings would not dare to attack the disciples of the Feng people in public. Did they not want to live anymore? It should be known that the Feng people would never let go of the scars if they attacked the Feng people. This kind of thing was not unprecedented. In the past, those who made a move against the disciples of the Feng people were all hunted down by the experts of the Feng people. In the end, they were all killed by the experts of the Feng people. They didn't know why Xiao Chun and the others had made a move. Of course, Lin Yuan and Lin, who didn't give these people a chance to speak. Since they were already a bunch of dead people, what was the point of knowing so much? Who are you? How dare you kill the disciples of the Feng people? Are you tired of living? Seeing his own disciples being killed one after another, the leader shouted angrily. However, Lin Yuan only coldly replied to his shout. That's right, Feng people. If they weren't the disciples of the Feng people, Lin Yuan and the others wouldn't have made a move. Such a reply was simply inconceivable in the leader's ears. Damn it, did this group of people not know how terrifying the Feng people were? Or were they not afraid of the Feng people at all? How could it be? They were only at the divine ancestor realm. The Feng people could easily kill them. They couldn't understand why Lin Yuan, Lin Hu, and the others would suddenly make a move. Even when they died, they still couldn't kill them. In the blink of an eye, more than 20 disciples of the Feng people were killed by Lin Yuan and Lin Hu. Such a commotion naturally attracted many cultivators in the city. At this moment, the surrounding cultivators were all stunned as if they had been struck by lightning. What's going on? Are the Feng people dead? Who are these people who killed so many disciples of the Feng people? They have guts. The surrounding people were all dumbfounded. This group of people was truly fearless. They even dared to kill the disciples of the Feng people. Moreover, they didn't even try to hide it. Why did they make a move in front of so many people? What were they trying to do? In the eyes of ordinary people, even if they had a grudge against the Feng people, they could just make a move secretly. When the time came, the Feng people couldn't find the culprit and couldn't do anything to them. However, killing so many disciples of the Feng people in public was tantamount to declaring war on the Feng people. While everyone was still in shock, the City Lord Mansion's experts also arrived. They passed through the crowd and saw the corpses on the ground. For a moment, they were completely dumbfounded. After a while, he finally turned his attention to Xiao Chun and the others. The White Rock continent was a continent controlled by the Star Lord's palace. Naturally, the City Lord Mansion was also a member of the Star Lord's palace. The City Lord Mansion's leader immediately recognized Xiao Chun and Lin Yun. You are Xiao Chun and Lin Yun? It couldn't be helped. The arrest warrant of the Feng people had caused an uproar. How could the City Lord not recognize them? Moreover, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun belonged to the Emperor Dong's palace. In the end, they were also members of the Star Lord's palace. In recent days, it was rumored that the emperors of the Star Lord's palace were discussing whether they should speak to the Feng people. They wanted to see what grudges there were between the two parties. However, who would have thought that Xiao Chun and Lin Yun would kill so many disciples of the Feng people? With the temper of the Feng people, this could be considered as a complete feud. He also knew the City Lord's identity. He was considered an outer member of the Star Lord's palace. After all, his cultivation was only at the level of a world lord. Looking at the City Lord's shocked face, Xiao Chun said calmly, "This has nothing to do with you. You can do whatever you want." Xiao Chun had no intention of involving others. Moreover, a mere City Lord couldn't help much. Hearing this, the City Lord was stunned. Then he said speechlessly, "Sai, let's not talk about this. You guys, Sai, let's not talk about it anymore. Let's hurry up and go to the Star Lord Hall before the Phoenixes arrive." At the moment, only the Star Lord's palace could protect Xiao Chun and the others. After all, no matter how strong the Feng people were, they couldn't be a match for the Star Lord's palace, let alone barge into the Star Lord's palace. As long as Xiao Chun and the others successfully arrived at the Star Lord's palace, the Feng people wouldn't be able to do anything. However, in the face of his suggestion, Xiao Chun rejected him without even thinking about it. "It's fine. Since the Feng people want to come, let them come." They couldn't hide. They couldn't hide forever. Xiao Chun and Lin Yun's current thoughts were very simple. They wanted to take revenge crazily and break through to the Emperor stage as soon as possible. As long as they encountered a disciple of the Phoenixes, they would be killed without any hesitation. After breaking through to become a ruler, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun would make a trip to the Phoenixes without the Phoenixes looking for them. Seeing that Xiao Chun didn't listen to his words at all, the city lord was a little anxious. They were all members of the Star Lord's palace, and Xiao Chun and Lin Yun's status was much higher than his. The city lord naturally didn't want anything to happen to Xiao Chun and Lin Yun. However, before the city lord could speak, Lin Yun interrupted him. "Thank you for your good intentions, but these are not things that you can interfere in. We will handle them ourselves." After saying that, without waiting for the city lord to reply, the group strode into the city. As for the corpses all over the ground, they were naturally left to the city lord to deal with. Please collect, vote, recommend. Chapter 3289. Xiao Chun and his group didn't care about killing the Feng people's disciples at all. They didn't feel that they had caused any trouble. Only the city lord and his group were left standing on the spot with ugly expressions. After a while, a city lord's mansion cultivator asked cautiously, "My lord, what should we do now? Let's clean up first. Tell the Feng people what they need to say. What else could they do now?" The city lord definitely didn't dare to offend the Feng people. He could only report the matter truthfully and see what the Star Lord's palace would say. As for Xiao Chun and Lin Yun, the city lord looked in the direction where they left and sighed. He didn't say anything else. After staying in the city for a day, Xiao Chun and his group also inquired about the Heavenly White Rock Lake. They found out that the Heavenly White Rock Lake wasn't open or closed. As long as they had the permission of the Star Lord's palace, they could enter and cultivate. However, it wasn't easy to enter the Heavenly White Rock Lake. Moreover, the Heavenly White Rock Lake was guarded by an emperor from the Star Lord's palace all year round. After inquiring about this information, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun decided to go to the Heavenly White Rock Lake to take a look. They didn't know what kind of conditions were needed to obtain the qualifications to enter the Heavenly White Rock Lake. However, they were all members of the Star Lord's palace. They should go and see the emperor of the Heavenly White Rock Lake first. Under normal circumstances, as long as the emperor agreed, there wouldn't be any problems. Therefore, on the second day, Xiao Chun and his group rushed to the Heavenly White Rock Lake. At the same time, after a day, the news of the Feng people's disciples being killed by Xiao Chun and his group had also spread to the Feng people. At this moment, several battle ancestor realm kings of the Feng people gathered together. The leader of the Feng people, an old man, said in a deep voice, "Everyone knows about the White Rock continent, right? Yes, I've heard a little about it. However, who are Xiao Chun and Lin Yun?" "That's right. Why did you suddenly attack the Feng people?" Most of these people did not know the identities of Xiao Chun and Lin Yun. After all, the previous series of events were not the intention of the Feng people, but of that young master. Hearing everyone's doubts, the old man in the lead took a deep breath and slowly spoke. Its second young master, Feng Yin, he recounted what had happened to everyone present. All the people present were the elders of the Feng people. As a large clan, all the matters of the Feng people were basically handled by the patriarch and the elders. Now that the clan leader was in seclusion, although not all of the clan elders of the Feng people were present, they could make a decision. After hearing what had happened, everyone fell silent for a moment before speaking up. In other words, this matter was initiated by Feng Yin. So what if it was? Xiao Chun and Lin Yun dared to kill the disciples of the Feng people. They were courting death. I think so too. No matter what, daring to kill the disciples of the Feng people is a capital offense. That's right. The Feng people will not let this matter go. At first, when they found out that Feng Yin was the one who initiated the matter, everyone was a little surprised. However, they soon forgot all of this. In the eyes of the clan elders of the Feng people, no matter what the reason was, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun dared to attack the Feng people. They were courting death. As for Feng Yin, they did not feel that there was anything wrong with him. Since the Feng people asked him to come, then he had no reason to refuse. This was the Feng people. They were extremely overbearing. As the clan elders spoke up, everyone felt that they should immediately send people to the White Rock continent to capture Xiao Chun and his group. Hearing everyone's words, the old man in the lead nodded in agreement. Then let's leave it to the 7 Big Dipper elders. Anyway, They have been tracking down the whereabouts of this group of people. Very good. With the 7 Big Dipper elders, it should be easy to capture them. That's right. Capture these people and refine their souls. Let them know the consequences of killing the disciples of the Feng people. Yes, the Feng people never thought of compromising. They would not compromise with kings like Xiao Chun and Lin Yan. Anyway, they killed the disciples of the Feng people. They deserved to die. As for who was right and who was wrong, it did not matter at all. In an instant, the matter between Xiao Chun and the Feng people directly rose to the level of the entire Feng people. If it was only Feng Yin who wanted to deal with Xiao Chun and Lin Yan before, then the entire Feng people wanted to deal with Xiao Chun and Lin Yan now. The conflict between the two sides was once again planned. It was estimated that there was no room for negotiation now. After the elders made their decision, the 7 Big Dipper elders also quickly received the order to immediately make a trip to the White Rock continent. In Feng Yin's residence, he also received the news. At this moment, the beautiful woman looked at him and said with some displeasure, "This group of ants actually dared to take revenge. Hee hee, this is normal. After all, even a rabbit will bite when it is anxious. But now that the disciples of the clan were killed because of our matter, will the elders blame you?" The beautiful woman's worry was not unreasonable. After all, it was Feng Yin who started this matter. If it were not for Feng Yin, those disciples of the Feng people would not have been taken revenge by Xiao Chun and the others. If this matter caused the elders to be displeased, it would not be a good thing. However, hearing this, Feng Yin still said without any change in his expression, "That won't happen. How can a few ordinary disciples compare to me? The elders will not blame me for this." Feng Yin, on the other hand, was very confident. In his opinion, Xiao Chun and Lin Yan had done something that couldn't be any more wrong. They took revenge on the Feng people and killed the disciples of the Feng people. This had completely angered the Feng people. Now that they were faced with the anger of the entire Feng people, they had no chance at all. The Feng people were completely enraged, and the palace of the Star Lord had also received the news. At this moment, Black Matriarch finally rushed back from the western region. As soon as she returned, she heard about the matter between Xiao Chun and the Feng people. Black Matriarch's expression instantly turned ugly. They really don't make people worry at all. They just cause trouble in the Extreme Path Palace. And now they have offended the Feng people? Black Matriarch was a little speechless. How could Xiao Chun and Lin Yan be so good at causing trouble? However, after hearing her words, an emperor of the Star Lord Palace below smiled bitterly and said, "Actually, this matter really can't be blamed on Xiao Chun and the others. It was the Feng people who started it first." Then, this emperor also truthfully told Black Matriarch what had happened. After hearing this emperor's words, Black Matriarch's expression became even more gloomy. These Feng people are really getting more and more out of hand. Indeed, from the development of the matter, it was the Feng people who took the initiative to find Xiao Chun and the others. Xiao Chun and the others could be said to have done nothing wrong. However, the Feng people would not be reasonable. Moreover, at this time, Black Matriarch did not want Xiao Chun and the others to cause trouble with the Feng people. After pondering for a moment, Black Matriarch said coldly, "Send someone to negotiate with the Feng people. Please collect monthly vote recommend." Chapter 3290. At this time, Black Matriarch did not want to see any more turmoil in the Fire Phoenix galaxy. Now that the Star Lord and Elder Master were not here, the entire Star Lord's palace was naturally under Black Matriarch's control. However, after hearing this, the Emperor beside her said with a bitter smile, "I'm afraid the Feng people won't agree." Now that Xiao Chun and the others had killed the Feng people's disciples, even if the palace of the Star Lord stepped in, with the Feng people's character, they probably would not let this matter go unless the Star Lord personally stepped in. Hearing this, Black Matriarch's expression became even more unsightly, and then she said coldly, "Send someone to take a look first." The Feng people's status in the central region was somewhat special. To be honest, Black Matriarch also had a headache over this. It did not mean that the Foam people had the ability to contend with the palace of the Star-Lord. To put it bluntly, although the Foam people were very strong, they were not truly the top in the central region. Other than the palace of the Star-Lord, there were at least 2 or 3 forces that could firmly suppress the Foam people. After all, the Foam people only had 2 emperors in charge, but the palace of the Star-Lord had no less than 10 emperors on the surface. Therefore, the palace of the Star-Lord was completely capable of directly destroying the Foam people, but they could not do so. This was the most troublesome point, and also the reason why the Foam people were so rampant. All right, there was no other way. The emperor could only agree. At the same time, Shao Chun and the others had already arrived at the heavenly White Rock Lake. They were directly in the sky above the White Rock continent, passing through thick clouds before arriving at the heavenly White Rock Lake. A palace floated 10,000 meters in the sky, looking extremely magical. They slowly landed outside the palace. Just as Shao Chun and the others arrived, the palace door opened directly. Seeing this, Shao Chun and Lin Yun both smiled slightly. Looks like they've discovered us. Let's go in and take a look. This palace was guarded by a ruler from the palace of the Star-Lord, so it was not strange that he knew about their appearance. Moreover, Shao Chun and his group did not deliberately hide their whereabouts. Everyone was a member of the temple of the Star-Lord. If they still wanted to be sneaky, they might end up making a fool of themselves. Walking all the way into the main hall, a middle-aged man sat on the main seat in the center of the hall. There was no one else around him. The middle-aged man spoke first when he saw Shao Chun and the others walking over. TSK. After causing such a huge disaster, instead of running away, you dare to come to the heavenly White Rock Lake? It was obvious that the middle-aged man knew about the Foam people's disciple being killed. With regards to this, Shao Chun simply nodded in agreement. Even if we run, we can still run to the top. You're right. Do you want to break through to become a ruler and then find trouble with the Foam people? The middle-aged man directly said what Shao Chun and the others were thinking. With their current strength, they were naturally not enough to contend with the Foam people. However, Shao Chun and Lin Yun had already touched the threshold of becoming rulers. As long as they successfully broke through to become rulers, the Foam people would naturally not dare to make a move at will. After all, the Foam people only had 2 rulers. Once Shao Chun and Lin Yun broke through, in terms of top-notch combat strength, the Foam people would not be at an advantage. Moreover, once the Foam people did not have the ability to kill Shao Chun and Lin Yun, it would be a disaster for the entire Foam people. Just the thought of offending 2 rulers and not being able to deal with it was a terrifying thing. Who knew when a disaster would befall them? Senior, since you know why we're here, there's no need for me to explain. Shao Chun and the others naturally wanted to enter the heavenly White Rock Lake. Now, it all depended on the attitude of the middle-aged man in front of them. As long as he nodded, there would be no problem. Seeing that Shao Chun had no intention of beating around the bush, the middle-aged man laughed loudly. After laughing, he spoke slowly. I can let you enter the heavenly White Rock Lake, and even protect you during the time you enter. Even if the Foam people send people over, I can help you stop them. As soon as the middle-aged man said this, Shao Chun frowned slightly. The reason for this was that the middle-aged man's attitude was very strange. Not only did he agree to let them enter the heavenly White Rock Lake without any requirements, but he could even protect them. In this case, he must have a purpose. It was impossible for him to do this for no reason. Therefore, Shao Chun asked directly without hiding anything. In this case, what do we need to do for you? You're indeed smart. Hearing Shao Chun's question, the middle-aged man laughed loudly. Shao Chun was very sensible, so the middle-aged man did not hide anything. After you break through to become a ruler, just help me kill a person. Can we kill someone that even you can't kill? In this regard, Shao Chun did not agree directly. After all, the middle-aged man was an emperor. Someone that even he could not kill was definitely a troublesome existence. Seeing that Shao Chun was so vigilant, the middle-aged man did not care. He said with a faint smile, as if he was sure that Shao Chun would not reject him, "Don't be anxious. I didn't kill him not because I don't have the ability, but because of my identity. Since I'm the ruler of the palace of the Star Lord, I naturally can't act as I wish most of the time. However, you won't reject the person I want to kill, because he's the clan leader of the Foam People. How about it? You have a feud with the Foam People. Now that you've agreed to my request, you're just going with the flow. Kill the clan leader of the Foam People? Hearing this, Xiao Chun fell into silence. Indeed, if it was the Foam People, it would not be a difficult choice for Xiao Chun. After all, even without the middle-aged man's request, Xiao Chun would still have to go to the Foam People to seek an explanation in the future. After glancing at Lin Yun and seeing that Lin Yun did not object, Xiao Chun thought for a moment and nodded in agreement. After all, this matter was not bad for him and the others. Okay, I promise you. Okay, but it's just empty words. How about this? Make a heavenly oath that after you break through to become a ruler, you'll definitely kill the clan leader of the Foam People for me. Seeing Xiao Chun nod, the middle-aged man did not believe him immediately. Instead, he asked Xiao Chun and Lin Yun to make a heavenly oath. In response, Xiao Chun frowned slightly, but he quickly said with a smile, "Sure. But at the same time, do you also have to make a heavenly oath?" Sure. Since it was a heavenly oath, it was naturally impossible for him to be the only one. The middle-aged man also needed to make a heavenly oath. In response, the middle-aged man simply nodded in agreement. He did not hesitate at all. Just as Xiao Chun and the others were discussing with the middle-aged man, in the palace of the Star Lord, Black Matriarch also received a reply from the Foam People. The people sent by the Star Lord did not see the higher-ups of the Foam People at all and were directly rejected at the door. Please collect, vote, recommend. Chapter 32:91. Even the people from the Star-Lord's palace were nowhere to be seen. Hearing this, the expression on Black Matriarch's face became even more unsightly. The Foam People had been arrogant for too long, but the Star-Lord's palace had no way to attack the Foam People. What should we do now? The ruler at the side also said with an ugly expression at this moment. In response, Black Matriarch replied snappily, "I know what to do." She was indeed quite angry at the Foam People. However, after calming down, Black Matriarch had no choice but to think about how to solve this matter. Putting aside the Foam People, based on Black Matriarch's understanding of Xiao Chun and Lin Yun, these two fellows were not easy to deal with. Being targeted and chased down for no reason, with Xiao Chun and Lin Yun's personalities, it was impossible for them to let it go just like that. However, these two people's talents were also extraordinarily high, although they were only kings of the War Ancestor realm, who knew when they would break through to the Emperor realm. Once Xiao Chun and Lin Yun broke through to the Emperor realm, things would be completely different. At that time, the two of them would definitely have to go to the Foam People. At this juncture, Black Matriarch naturally did not want any conflict between the two sides. After all, no matter what the outcome was, it would be the Fire Phoenix Galaxy that would be injured. And right now, there was still the Azure Dragon Galaxy eyeing them covetously. Since the Foam People were not easy to deal with, she could only start with Xiao Chun and Lin Yun. After thinking for a moment, Black Matriarch asked, "Where are Xiao Chun and Lin Yun now?" "They have already arrived at the Heavenly White Rock Lake." Heavenly White Rock Lake. The Star-Lord's palace naturally knew the whereabouts of Xiao Chun and Lin Yun. Firstly, they were worried that the Foam People would harm the two of them. The Star-Lord's palace naturally could not just watch the two of them be killed by the Foam People. Secondly, they were also worried that Xiao Chun and Lin Yun would do something extreme and make the situation worse. To put it bluntly, both sides were worrisome. Hearing that Xiao Chun and Lin Yun had already arrived at the Heavenly White Rock Lake, Black Matriarch's expression was calm at first, but soon she seemed to have thought of something and looked at the Emperor's palace. Who is in charge of guarding the Heavenly White Rock Lake? It can't be that guy Tian Tai, right? That's right, it is Tian Tai. Speaking of Tian Tai, Black Granny's face turned even uglier. Good heavens, it really was him. Tian's was Tian's emperor to the Emperor's palace to be seen. Originally, this was not a big deal, but the problem was that Tiantai and the Phoenixes had a deep enmity. Before Tiantai broke through to become a ruler, his wife was slandered by the Phoenixes. After that, Tiantai became an emperor and insisted on taking revenge on the Foam people. If it were not for the Star-Lord's palace stopping him, he would have gone to their door long ago. Even so, everyone in the Star-Lord's palace knew that Tiantai's hatred for the Foam people was as deep as the sea. Now that the three of them had met, the result was obvious. Go to the heavenly white rock lake immediately. No matter what method you use, you must bring Shao Chun and the others back. They absolutely could not let Shao Chun and the others be with Tiantai. This would only make the situation more difficult to control. Hearing Black Matriarch's words, the Emperor nodded and disappeared from the hall. After the Emperor left, Black Matriarch shook her head helplessly. What was going on? At the moment, the Star-Lord and Elder Master were not in the central region, and the situation in the western region was getting more and more tense. Who knew when the Azure Dragon Galaxy would make a move? However, at this time, the central region also made people worry and caused so much trouble. What a group of troublemakers. Black Matriarch had seen Shao Chun and Lin Yun's ability to cause trouble, but in the end, this matter could not be blamed on them. After all, it was the Foam people who took the initiative to cause trouble. Just as Black Matriarch was busy at the heavenly White Rock Lake, after settling the matter with Tiantai, Shao Chun and Lin Yun directly entered the heavenly White Rock Lake. As for Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others, because their cultivation had not reached the War Ancestor realm, they naturally could not enter, but Tiantai also arranged a good secret cultivation room for them. These secret rooms were unique to the heavenly White Rock Lake and contained some of the heavenly White Rock Lake's energy. It was also beneficial to Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others. During the cultivation period, Tiantai said that he would protect Shao Chun and the others. Even if the Foam people sent people over, they would definitely not disturb Shao Chun and the others. Shao Chun and the others only needed to cultivate at ease. No matter how arrogant the Foam people were, they would definitely not dare to openly go against the palace of the Star-Lord. With Tiantai's guarantee, Shao Chun and the others naturally had no worries. The two of them directly entered the heavenly White Rock Lake. Located above the clouds, a pool of water seemed to grow in the clouds. This was the heavenly White Rock Lake. The pool water was milky white and emitted bursts of fragrance. Moreover, one could feel that there was an extremely large amount of law origin power in it. It seems that this place is not inferior to the Emperor Extremity Mountain. Yes, indeed. No more nonsense, let's begin. With that, the two of them jumped into the pool together. The heavenly White Rock Lake was not big, but it could accommodate Shao Chun and Lin Yun's cultivation. There was no problem at all. In fact, this time, Tiantai had relaxed the conditions. Otherwise, how could it be so easy to enter the heavenly White Rock Lake? In the central region, there were many people who wanted to enter the heavenly White Rock Lake to cultivate, but in the end, there were only a few people who could fulfill their wish. Tiantai did this because he could not directly attack the Foam people, and he could not let go of the hatred in his heart. Therefore, Tiantai hoped that Shao Chun and Lin Yun would become his sabers to avenge him and kill the patriarch of the Foam people. It could be considered that he was using Shao Chun and Lin Yun, but the patriarch had also made it clear and offered sufficient conditions in exchange, which happened to be what Shao Chun and Lin Yun needed. Sitting cross-legged in the heavenly White Rock Lake, strands of terrifying law origin power continuously surged into Shao Chun and Lin Yun's bodies. The law origin power in the heavenly White Rock Lake was even denser than that of the Emperor Extremity Mountain, but it did not have the heavenly thunderbolts to temper the body. Nevertheless, what Shao Chun and Lin Yun needed right now was this law origin power. This was because only with enough law origin power could Shao Chun and Lin Yun successfully break through to become rulers and continue to break through. Without wasting any time, Shao Chun and Lin Yun quickly fell into cultivation. Their cultivations were also slowly increasing. They did not know if they could successfully break through to become rulers this time. Nevertheless, regardless of whether they could succeed or not, with the help of the heavenly white rock lake, they could definitely take another step forward. Even if they could not break through, they were not far away. Just as Xiao Chun and Lin Yun began to cultivate, outside the heavenly white rock lake, the ruler of the Star Lord's palace also arrived before the Foam people. When he saw Tian Tai, the ruler said somewhat helplessly, "Where are they?" Black Granny asked me to bring them back to the Star Lord's palace. Brother Tian Tai, don't make things difficult for me. Please collect, monthly vote, recommend. End of this chapter. Chapter 3292. Where are they? Black Granny asked me to bring them back to the Star Lord's palace. Brother Tian Tai, don't make things difficult for me. Facing Tian Tai, this emperor was really helpless. They were both emperors of the Star Lord's palace, so the two of them were naturally very familiar with each other. To be honest, Tian Tai was definitely top-notch in all aspects, and his personality was also very easygoing. However, there was a prerequisite, and that was that he could not involve the Foam people. Once the Foam people were involved, Tian Tai seemed to have completely changed into a different person, and nothing could enter his ears. Just like now, when he heard his words, Tian Tai only smiled and said, "You mean Xiao Chun and the others? They've already gone to the heavenly white rock lake." "What? You let them enter the heavenly white rock lake? What's wrong with that? We're all from the Star Lord's palace, and I see that the two of them are about to break through to the Emperor realm. Is it strange for them to go to the heavenly white rock lake?" Tian Tai's words sounded reasonable at first, but knowing his personality, this matter was definitely not that simple. Looking at Tian Tai helplessly, the Emperor took a deep breath and asked, "Tell me, what did you say to Xiao Chun and the others?" He did not believe that Tian Tai would let Xiao Chun and the others enter the heavenly white rock lake just like that, even if they were all from the Star Lord's palace. Tian Tai did not try to hide this. He smiled and spoke without mincing his words. "It's nothing. I just asked them to do me a favor." "Help? What kind of help?" "Kill a person." "Who?" "The leader of the Foam people." Good Lord. Hearing this, the Emperor was immediately stunned on the spot. This was nothing. He was speechless. However, this was also in line with Tian Tai's personality. As long as this guy had the chance, he would definitely not let the Foam people go. Now that Xiao Chun and the others were in conflict with the Foam people, it was understandable for Tian Tai to do this. However, this way, wouldn't it be a mess? Immediately, the Emperor refused to give up and tried to persuade him. "Brother Tian Tai, are you trying to harm them? Xiao Chun and Lin Yun are only at the War Ancestor realm. How do you expect them to kill the patriarch of the Foam people? Let me bring these two back to the Star Lord's palace. This way, the Foam people won't dare to do anything." It doesn't matter. Even if they can't do it now, it doesn't mean that they won't be able to do it in the future. I see that the two of them have already touched the threshold of rulers. I think it won't be long before they break through. By then, they'll naturally be able to kill the chief of the Foam people. Do you know that if you do that, the entire world will be in chaos? Don't you know the consequences of a war between sovereigns? So what? Furthermore, there's no turning back now. We've already sworn the heavenly Tao oath. After hearing Tian Tai say that they had already sworn an oath to the heavens, the ruler was speechless. This was blocking all paths of retreat. Once one swore an oath to the heavens, if one did not keep it, it would be equivalent to being entangled with karma. If it was serious, one would die, and one's cultivation would regress, becoming a cripple. He did not expect Tian Tai to be so ruthless as to even take out an oath to the heavens. Great, what should he do now? If he forcefully brought Xiao Chun and the others back, it would be equivalent to destroying Xiao Chun and the others. However, if he allowed them to go to the Foam people, wouldn't it be chaotic? When Tian Tai saw how speechless the ruler was, he said calmly, "Don't worry about it. Is there a need for that? It's just the chief of the Foam people. It's fine if you kill him." It's easy for you to say that. So I forget it. I'll tell Black Granny about this first. Now that things had developed to this point, it was better to let Black Granny make the decision. It was up to him to choose. In any case, there were only two choices. One was to stop Xiao Chun and the others and let them be entangled with karma and become cripples from then on. The other was to let Xiao Chun and the others kill the chief of the Feng people and complete the oath to the heavens. However, no matter what choice he made, he felt a little helpless. As soon as he finished speaking, the ruler immediately took out a voice transmission talisman to contact Black Granny to see how she would solve the problem. At the same time, outside the heavenly white rock lake, the 7 Big Dipper elders of the Feng people had also arrived. It was not too difficult for the Feng people to track down a person's news, so they soon learned that Xiao Chun and the others had come to the heavenly white rock lake. After learning the news, the 7 Big Dipper elders rushed over without hesitation. Sensing the aura of the 7 Big Dipper elders, Tian Tai said with a sneer, "A guest is here. I'll go out and take a look. You can do whatever you want." After saying that, Tian Tai directly disappeared from the main hall. As for the ruler, he snorted coldly. Obviously, he was dissatisfied. Outside the main hall, Tian Tai's figure appeared out of thin air in front of the 7 Big Dipper elders. Looking at Tian Tai, the 7 Big Dipper elders bowed respectfully. "Greetings, Senior Tian Tai." No matter how arrogant they were, the 7 Big Dipper elders knew who the person in front of them was. He was an existence that was not weaker than their own great ancestor. Of course, the relationship between the Feng people and Tian Tai had always been like fire and water. However, in front of him, the necessary etiquette still had to be shown. Facing the 7 Big Dipper elders' bow, Tian Tai asked indifferently, "The 7 Big Dipper elders of the Feng people. What are you doing here?" Everyone knew that Tian Tai was asking the obvious, but the 7 Big Dipper elders still forced themselves to answer respectfully. "To be honest with you, Senior, we're here for Xiao Chun and Lin Yan. The two of them slaughtered the disciples of the Feng people for no reason. We're also under orders to arrest them." "Oh, I've never seen the world. Xiao Chun and Lin Yan, you've come to the wrong place. Get lost." Who would have thought that Tian Tai would directly dismiss them with a single sentence? Hearing this, the 7 Big Dipper elders' faces darkened. Was he treating them like 3-year-old children? The news from the Feng people clearly stated that Xiao Chun and the others had come to the heavenly white lake. Was he going to let them go with a single sentence? However, the 7 Big Dipper elders still knew the severity of the situation. Moreover, even if the 7 of them joined forces, they would not be able to gain any advantage against Tian Tai. Therefore, it definitely could not attack at this time. Moreover, the Heavenly White Lake was managed by the Star-Lord's palace. Attacking here was equivalent to directly provoking the Star-Lord's palace. Taking a deep breath and forcibly suppressing the anger in his heart, one of the 7 Big Dipper elders said in a deep voice, "Senior, please don't joke with us. Xiao Chun and Lin Yan are people that our great ancestor personally ordered to be arrested. I hope that Senior can make things convenient for us." "Now what? Are you trying to scare me with your 2 mixed-haired birds?" Not to mention that those 2 mixed-haired birds didn't come. Even if they did, what can they do? I've already said that I've never seen Xiao Chun and Lin Yan. That means I've never seen them. If you still want to pester me, don't blame me for being ruthless. Tian Tai. Hearing Tian Tai's words, the 7 Big Dipper elders could no longer hold themselves back. After all, their great ancestor had actually become 2 mixed-haired birds in Tian Tai's mouth. Who could endure that? Please add me to your collection. Please recommend me. Chapter 3293. Tian Tai's attitude toward the Feng people was not strange. However, he had openly insulted the Feng people's patriarch, which made the 7 Big Dipper elders furious. To be honest, for so many years, Tian Tai and the Feng people could not stand each other and wanted to kill each other. Unfortunately, due to various reasons, everyone restrained themselves. Tian Tai could not attack the Feng people because of his identity as a member of the Star-Lord's palace. The Feng people also did not dare to attack Tiantai because of his identity. Given the Phoenix's foundation, even if Tiantai was a ruler, if the Phoenixes really made up their mind, two great ancestors would attack at the same time. In addition to other methods, they would have a chance to kill Tiantai. However, the Feng people did not do so. The reason was very simple. It was because the Feng people did not dare to kill Tiantai. No matter what, Tiantai was an emperor of the Star-Lord's palace. Once he was killed, the Star-Lord's palace would definitely be furious. An emperor and a king were completely different. If they killed a king of the Star-Lord's palace, the Feng people might be able to deal with it. If they gave some compensation, the Star-Lord's palace would not hold on to it. After all, although a king was also very strong, it was not fundamental to the Star-Lord's palace. However, an emperor was different. If they killed an emperor, even the Feng people would find it difficult to explain. The Star-Lord's palace would definitely not let it go so easily. It was precisely because of this that Tiantai and the Feng people had formed an inexplicable tacit understanding over the years. However, now, Tiantai insisted on protecting Xiao, Chun, and Linyan. This was undoubtedly going against the Feng people again. Facing the furious 7 Big Dipper elders, Tiantai did not care at all and sneered. "What? Do you want to attack me? If you don't want to die, you can try." Tiantai could not wait for the 7 Big Dipper elders to attack him, because once they attacked first, Tiantai would have enough reason to kill them here. When the time came, even if the Star-Lord asked, Tiantai would have enough reasons to stand firm. How could he not know what Tiantai was thinking? Moreover, with this person's character, as long as he was given a sufficient excuse, he would not be polite to the Feng people. If he could kill them, he would not let them go. Over the years, Tiantai had used this method to kill many of the Feng people's disciples. Every time, Tiantai would have sufficient reasons to leave the Feng people speechless. They were furious, but there was nothing they could do. The 7 Big Dipper elders were sure that if they chose to attack now, the 7 of them would become corpses in the next second. Knowing the consequences, the 7 Big Dipper elders could only suppress their anger and snort coldly. Tiantai, you will regret this." "Trash, scram if you don't dare to fight." Tiantai did not hold back at all. As for the 7 Great Bear elders, they could only leave with their tails between their legs. Although the 7 of them were not weak, it also depended on who they were facing. Facing Tiantai, who was considered a top-ranked powerhouse among the many rulers, even if the 7 of them joined forces, they would not have any chance of winning. After shouting at the 7 of them to leave, Tiantai returned to the main hall with a calm expression. At the same time, seeing Tiantai return, the rulers said speechlessly, "Do you think it's not chaotic enough now? These are 2 different things. Don't mix them up." "You, forget it. Black Granny asked me to tell you that no matter what, you can't personally attack the Feng people. As for Xiao Chun and Linyan, you can do whatever you want." This was also a helpless action because Black Granny knew very well that once the Feng people were involved, even if it was her order, Tiantai might not necessarily listen to her. In that case, it was better to control the situation within a controllable range. As long as Tiantai did not personally attack the Feng people, it would be fine. Of course, there was also the most important problem, which was the Heavenly Oath. Xiao Chun and Linyan had already sworn the Heavenly Oath. Stopping them at this time would be equivalent to destroying them. Only God knew how conflicted Black Granny was at the moment. The 2 of them were really troublesome. Hearing Black Granny's order, Tiantai did not hesitate much and nodded in response. "Okay, I won't attack the Feng people. That's enough. All right, I'll go back now. Be careful and don't cause any more trouble. The situation in the western region isn't very good. I reckon that it won't be long before you and I have to leave." The war was getting closer. As the #1 battlefield between the 2 galaxies, the western region was definitely the most important. Although the Fire Phoenix Galaxy had already deployed 7 or 8 rulers in the western region, this was obviously not enough. Once the war started, the Azure Dragon Galaxy would definitely do their best. Therefore, it was understandable that more rulers would be transferred to the western region. Regarding this, Tiantai was very obedient. He only hated the Feng people, but he had nothing to say about the Fire Phoenix Galaxy. As a ruler, he naturally had to stand up at this moment of life and death. Tiantai was very clear about this. Okay, when the time comes, you and I will leave together. Hearing this, the ruler's expression became slightly better. The 7 Big Dipper elders were blocked by Tiantai. The news was naturally sent back to the Feng people as soon as possible. At this moment, among the Feng people, the elders gathered again. Most of them had gloomy expressions. It's this Tiantai again. Is he determined to go against the Feng people? This guy is simply detestable. Does he really think that the Feng people can't do anything to him? Damn it, he's the one who jumps out to get in the way every time. At the mention of Tiantai, the elders were clearly filled with righteous indignation. Who was the most hateful person in the eyes of the Feng people? Tiantai was definitely at the top of the list because as long as he had the chance, he would definitely cause trouble for the Feng people. In any case, if the Feng people were unhappy, he would feel good. There was no need for any reason at all. He would just diss them. Now that Tiantai had stood up to protect Xiao Chun and Lin Yun, how could the elders of the Feng people not be angry? However, it was obviously impossible to deal with Tiantai without using the Great Ancestor. Once the Great Ancestor made a move, what would the Hall of the Star-Lord do? They would definitely not stand by and watch. After scolding, the elders were also in a dilemma. Tiantai was indeed difficult to deal with. If possible, the Feng people really wanted to find a chance to kill him. It's impossible to attack Tiantai now. The Star-Lord won't allow it either. Don't forget that the Star-Lord has already sent people here. But if we don't deal with Tiantai, how can we capture Xiao Chun and Lin Yun? Are we going to let them go just like that? If that's the case, where will the Feng people's face go? They definitely couldn't let Xiao Chun and Lin Yun go. The Feng people couldn't give up just because Tiantai stopped them. How would this look to outsiders? Wouldn't it prove that the Feng people were afraid of Tiantai? This was absolutely impossible. Therefore, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun must be captured. They couldn't let the two of them go. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 3294. They could not kill Tiantai, especially at this time. However, if they did not kill Tiantai, how could they deal with Xiao Chun and Lin Yun? Many elders of the Feng people were arguing with each other. In the end, the leading elder coughed lightly and interrupted the argument. First elder. This elder was the first elder of the Feng people. He had a high status among the Feng people. Everyone looked at him. Under the gaze of the elders, the first elder said faintly, "Ignore Tiantai for now. As for Xiao Chun and Lin Yun, I don't believe that they can hide in the heavenly White Rock Lake forever." Since Tiantai wanted to protect Xiao Chun and Lin Yun, the Feng people would not take action in the heavenly White Rock Lake. After Xiao Chun and the others left the heavenly White Rock Lake, Tiantai could not follow them all the way. Tiantai's task was to guard the heavenly White Rock Lake. He could not leave at will. Hearing the first elder's words, everyone nodded repeatedly. That's right. The first elder's words are reasonable. I don't believe that Tiantai can follow them all the way. That's right. Let the 7 Big Dipper elders guard outside the heavenly White Rock Lake. Once Xiao Chun and the others leave, take them down immediately. Good idea. It's settled then. Everyone spoke one after another. The matter was settled like this. The 7 Big Dipper elders were quickly restored by the clan. The 7 of them and other experts of the Feng people were to guard near the heavenly White Rock Lake. Once Xiao Chun and Lin Yun left, they would take action. Time passed day by day. Naturally, many experts of the Feng people were stationed outside the heavenly White Rock Lake. They were led by the 7 Big Dipper elders. Tiantai naturally knew about this. As an emperor, the 7 Big Dipper elders and the Feng people could not escape under the cover of his divine sense. However, Tiantai did not take action against these people. He understood what the Feng people were thinking. However, Tiantai was sneering in his heart at this time. How could the person he wanted to protect be caught so easily? Feng people had underestimated him. At this time, Tian Tai naturally could not let Xiao Chun and the others be taken down by the Feng people. Otherwise, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun could not break through to become rulers. How could they help him kill the Feng people's patriarch? Neither side seemed to be in a hurry. They persisted in the heavenly white rock lake for half a month. Xiao Chun and Lin Yun both came out of seclusion, but the Feng people still didn't leave. You're quite patient. Hey, on this day, Xiao Chun, Lin Yun, and Tian Tai sat together. Tian Tai sneered. It seemed that the Feng people would not give up until they achieved their goal. As soon as he finished speaking, Tian Tai looked at Xiao Chun and Lin Yun and chuckled. It seems that the two of you are still one step away from breaking through. That's right. After cultivating in seclusion in the heavenly white rock lake for half a month, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun were indeed one step away from breaking through to become rulers. Unfortunately, the last step was also the most difficult step. No matter how hard Xiao Chun and Lin Yun worked, they could not break through at all. Hearing Tian Tai's words, Lin Yun said with a bitter smile, "I've disappointed you, senior. I'm indeed one step away from breaking through, but I still can't find a way." Ha! If it's so easy to break through to become a ruler, there wouldn't be so many kings stuck here. It's fine. There's a place that can definitely help the two of you break through. Senior, please speak. The Evil Abyss Cave. The Evil Abyss Cave was a dead land in the central region. It was called a dead land, but it was also a treasure land because it also had the opportunity to break through to become a ruler. However, compared to the Emperor Extremity Mountain and the Heavenly White Rock Lake, the Evil Abyss Cave was very dangerous. There were no restrictions in this place, and anyone could enter. However, even a king of the War Ancestor realm had a high chance of dying inside. There were countless ghost spirits inside, and the powerful ones were even comparable to king of the War Ancestor realm. The danger was great, but the opportunity was also great. As long as Xiao Chun and Lin Yun could safely come out of the Evil Abyss Cave, they would definitely be able to break through to the Monarch realm. As soon as he finished speaking, Tian Tai looked at the two of them with a smile. The Evil Abyss Cave is very dangerous. Even a king of the War Ancestor realm will have a slim chance of survival if they enter. However, in the midst of danger, there are also real opportunities. To tell you the truth, I also broke through to become a ruler in the Evil Abyss Cave. That place is not inferior to any of the treasure lands that you know. In fact, it's even better. However, I don't know if the two of you have the guts to enter. To be honest, in the central region, everyone knew that the Evil Abyss Cave contained great opportunities. Especially for King of the War Ancestor realm, there were very few people who dared to enter the Evil Abyss Cave. This was because it was indeed too dangerous. Ordinary King of the War Ancestor realm had almost no chance of survival if they entered. Even a peak King of the War Ancestor realm would have a slim chance of survival if they entered. Therefore, very few people had the guts to enter the Evil Abyss Cave. At this moment, after hearing Tian Tai's words, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun looked at each other and nodded. The Evil Abyss Cave is a good choice. The two of us are willing to go. That's right. If you want to break through to the Emperor realm, how can you cower? This old man didn't misjudge the two of you. Seeing Xiao Chun and Lin Yun nod, Tian Tai said with a smile. A hint of admiration flashed through his eyes. If Xiao Chun and Lin Yun didn't even dare to enter the Evil Abyss Cave, Tian Tai would probably be disappointed. Because how could such a person kill the patriarch of the Feng people? However, at this moment, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun clearly didn't disappoint Tian Tai. All right, in a while, this old man will personally open a spatial passage and send you out of the heavenly white rock lake. As for the other children, don't go with you. Their cultivation bases are too low. Even if they go to the Evil Abyss Cave, they'll just be courting death. Moreover, if they follow you, they'll have to deal with the threat of the Feng people all the way up the mountain. Let them stay with me. With me around, there's no need to worry about any danger. In order to let Xiao Chun and Lin Yun break through to the Emperor realm in peace, Tian Tai did his best. He even didn't hesitate to protect Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others. Xiao Chun and Lin Yun naturally had no reason to refuse. Firstly, cultivating in the heavenly white rock lake would definitely benefit Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others greatly. Secondly, it was safer to cultivate here. Moreover, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun were more convenient. Even if the phone people wanted to catch them, it would not be easy. Subsequently, Xiao Chun, Lin Yun, and Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and Lin Yuan chatted for a while. They only told each other some things and did not waste too much time. 2 hours later, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun were ready to leave. Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others looked at them worriedly. Tian Tai said with a smile, "The next time we meet, I hope you'll give me a surprise. Go ahead. The Evil Abyss Cave is where your opportunity to break through to the Emperor Realm lies. Whether you can seize it or not depends on you. Please collect it, get monthly votes, and recommend it." Chapter 3295. Tian Tai personally opened up an interspatial passage. With the cultivation of a ruler, he personally opened this interspatial passage. The martial artists of the phone people in the outside world could not detect it at all, including the 7 Big Dipper elders, unless the 2 great ancestors of the phone people personally came. However, at the moment, it was impossible for the 2 mixed-haired birds to personally make a move. In addition, the palace of the Star Lord would not let such a thing happen. Therefore, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun left the heavenly white rock lake without anyone noticing. As for Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others, they continued to stay in the lake to cultivate. This was something that Tian Tai could do for Xiao Chun and Yi Shiwen, and it would completely solve their worries. They directly left the White Rock continent through the interspatial passage and appeared in an uninhabited starry sky. After taking out the spatial spirit boat, Xiao Chun and the others headed in the direction of the Earth Abyss's evil den. The Earth Abyss's evil den did not belong to any continent. It was more like a black hole in the starry sky. It was said that entering the Earth Abyss's evil den was like entering another world. If it was not necessary, even a ruler would rarely enter the Earth Abyss's evil den. A warlord realm king would have a slim chance of survival in the Earth Abyss's evil den, but a ruler would also be in danger. From this, it could be seen how dangerous the Earth Abyss's evil den was. However, the Earth Abyss's evil den was also very strange. The ghost spirits inside could not come out as if they were blocked by some kind of power. It was also because of this that the Earth Abyss's evil den did not pose any threat to the Fire Phoenix galaxy. Otherwise, with the abilities of those ghost spirits, if they could freely enter and leave the Fire Phoenix galaxy, they would have caused chaos in the galaxy long ago. Along the way, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun did not encounter any danger. After all, the phone people probably did not know that they had left the heavenly White Rock Lake. Due to the distance between the heavenly White Rock Lake and the Earth Abyss's evil den, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun were still sailing in the starry sky for several days. Along the way, they encountered many spatial spirit boats and starships, but they did not know each other, so they just brushed past each other. On this day, the spatial spirit boat that Xiao Chun and Lin Yun were riding past by a small continent. Although it was called a continent, it was actually more like Star Island. It was not large, just like a small island in the middle of a vast ocean. However, when they saw this small island, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun's eyes flashed with a strange light. Phone people's territory? From afar, they could see that the island was filled with phone people's flags. Chapter 3297. Xiao Chun and Lin Yun had killed the phone people one after another. This had undoubtedly infuriated the phone people. The elders of the phone people would not stop until they killed Xiao Chun and Lin Yun. However, they still had a problem to consider. Where had Xiao Chun and Lin Yun gone? There was nothing they could do. Because of Tiantai, the Feng people had lost track of Xiao Chun and Lin Yun. Many elders guessed. In the end, someone could not help but speak. From the heavenly white rock lake to the Star Island, there's only one final destination. At this point, the elder paused, and the expressions of everyone present changed. Clearly, they understood what he meant. After a while, someone sucked in a breath of cold air. The Evil Abyss Cave? That's right. Judging from the trajectories of Xiao Chun and Lin Yun, the place they were most likely to go to was the Evil Abyss Cave. At the mention of this place, many elders of the Feng people fell silent. Although they were in the Middle Territory and were all overbearing, they were also afraid of the Evil Abyss Cave. Furthermore, to be honest, even though all the clan elders present had already reached the peak of the War Ancestor realm, to be honest, these old fellows might not even dare to go to the Earth Abyss Evil Cave. After all, the Evil Abyss Cave did not care if you were from the Feng people or not. Once you entered, you would most likely die. Therefore, after guessing that Xiao Chun and Lin Yun might have gone to the Evil Abyss Cave, many elders hesitated. They did not dare to go to the Evil Abyss Cave to capture Xiao Chun and Lin Yun. Of course, everyone present could guess why Xiao Chun and Lin Yun went to the Evil Abyss Cave. It was definitely to break through to the ruler realm. If it was not for this reason, who would take the risk to enter such a dangerous place like the Evil Abyss Cave? For a moment, no one knew what to do. In the end, it was the great elder who broke the silence. The underground Abyss Evil Cavern. We'll go stand guard outside the underground Abyss Evil Cavern. If those two bastards die inside, then so be it. If they dare to come out, we'll immediately take them down. It was impossible for them to enter the Earth Abyss, but they could block the entrance. There was only one entrance to the entire Earth Abyss Evil Cave. Therefore, as long as this place was blocked, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun would definitely be unable to escape. Hearing the great elder's words, everyone nodded in agreement. As long as they did not enter the Evil Abyss, everything was fine. This time, we absolutely can't let those two escape. So, who here is willing to go personally? Seeing that there were no objections, the first elder asked. In order to ensure that nothing goes wrong, the elders should personally take action. Hearing the first elder's words, 3 elders immediately stood out. Not only that, but they also had nothing to be afraid of in the abyss. Along with the voice, a woman in black suddenly appeared in the originally empty space. This was also a ghost spirit, because her appearance was exactly the same as a ghost spirit. It was easy to distinguish ghost spirits because every ghost spirit had red bloodlines all over its body, including its face. These bloodlines are called ghost tattoos. It was said that they were present when ghost spirits were born. Moreover, the more ghost tattoos a ghost spirit had, the stronger it would be. This was the case for the woman in front of them. Moreover, her aura had reached the king level of the War Ancestor realm. Not long after entering the Earth Abyss's evil cave, they actually encountered a king-level ghost spirit of the War Ancestor realm. Xiao Chun and Lin Yun did not know if they should say that they were lucky or too unlucky. This was because according to Tian Tai, ghost spirits of the War Ancestor realm, as well as ghost spirits of the Emperor realm, lived in the core area of the Earth Abyss's evil cave. They rarely appeared in the periphery. However, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun just had to meet them here. Facing Xiao Chun and Lin Yun, this ghost spirit did not show the slightest bit of fear. Its eyes were filled with killing intent as it spoke coldly. Humans, you shouldn't have entered the Earth Abyss's evil cave. This is not a place you can come to. Its words were filled with hatred. For some reason, these ghost spirits seemed to hate humans very much. Could it be that they did not want humans to enter the Earth Abyss's evil cave? After a short period of contact with the ghost spirits, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun also discovered that there seemed to be 2 completely different races among the ghost spirits. One was the few that they had seen when they first entered the Earth Abyss's evil cave. They ate their own kind and did not seem to have high intelligence. They were extremely murderous. Moreover, the appearance of these ghost spirits was also very different from the woman in front of them. These ghost spirits did not have ghost tattoos on their bodies. Their skin was dark, and they gave off a disgusting feeling at first glance. The second type was the ghost spirits of the woman in front of them. They could communicate with humans and had intelligence that was not inferior to humans. They were completely different from the first type. However, apart from the difference in intelligence, the aura on their bodies was exactly the same. There was no difference at all. This made Xiao Chun and Lin Yun curious. Why were these two types of ghost spirits so different? Could it be that there were racial divisions among the ghost spirits? Xiao Chun looked calmly at the woman in front of him and replied, "There is something we need in the Earth Abyss's evil cave, and we came here with no ill intentions." Since they could communicate, Xiao Chun also wanted to try. After all, it was naturally a good thing if they could be on good terms with the ghost spirits. Chapter 3299. Xiao Chun was somewhat interested in this woman, or rather, he was somewhat interested in these ghosts with intelligence. Moreover, in Xiao Chun's heart, there was actually an indescribable feeling that he didn't know how to explain for a moment. Therefore, Xiao Chun didn't plan to kill this woman. Instead, he wanted to capture her first to confirm some of his thoughts. Hearing Xiao Chun's words, Lin Yun naturally wouldn't say anything. To him, there was no difference whether he killed or captured her alive. Although capturing her alive would definitely be more difficult than killing her, there wasn't much of a difference. With the two of them working together, it wasn't too difficult to capture this woman. The three of them quickly fought. It could be seen that the woman hated humans very much. Even though it was the first time she saw Xiao Chun and Lin Yun, she attacked them crazily, as if she was facing her mortal enemies. This kind of hatred wasn't just directed at Xiao Chun and Lin Yun, it was directed at the entire human race. He really didn't know why this woman hated humans so much. However, as they fought, the strange feeling in Xiao Chun's heart became stronger and stronger. He didn't notice it before, but now, as the woman attacked, Xiao Chun felt that the woman had a very familiar feeling. This wasn't an aura, but a feeling similar to bloodline power. That's right, Xiao Chun knew where he had seen bloodline power similar to this woman's, but he couldn't remember it at the moment. But this was the Earth Abyss's evil cave, and the ghosts here actually had bloodline power that he had come into contact with before. Wasn't this strange? Vaguely, Xiao Chun felt that this Earth Abyss's evil cave wasn't as simple as it seemed on the surface. Perhaps there was some secret that he didn't know. Just as Xiao Chun, Lin Yun, and this woman were fighting, Black Matriarch personally rushed over from the heavenly white cliff lake. At this moment, in the main hall, Tian Tai and Black Matriarch looked at each other. It was obvious that Black Matriarch's expression was very ugly, and she was extremely angry at Tian Tai's attitude. She snorted coldly. What exactly do you want to do? Black Matriarch, what do you mean? I did as you said and didn't do anything to the phone people. Hearing this, Tian Tai replied innocently. However, Black Matriarch didn't care about his words at all. Instead, she directly berated him. What you're doing now is probably even more overboard than directly attacking the phone people. You actually allowed Xiao Chun and Xiao Chun to enter the evil abyss. Don't tell me you don't know what kind of place that is. The only reason Black Matriarch came here was because Xiao Chun and Lin Yun had gone to the abyss evil cave. Who would have thought that Tian Tai would have the guts to allow Xiao Chun and Yi Shiwen to enter the underground abyss? Was he trying to make things go out of control?